Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be. For all of you listening out there across the crazy planet Earth, welcome to Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Tracey Ouellette, coming to you live from the deep woods of Western Georgia on this June 4th, 2024. Tonight, we talk about relationships as it pertains spiritually and psychologically as well as emotionally. And I have my wife here, Tracey Ouellette, to join us on this adventure. It's kind of a part two from the last time she was on. You all requested that she come back and answer some of your questions about relationships. So we're here to answer them tonight. That will be coming up on the second hour. But first, we will be doing questions from the ether. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment. Well, hello everybody. I hope you are all having a wonderful, fantastic evening here. I am trying some new things here tonight on the video feed, and it looks like one of them is just not working. So let me see if I can... Oh, there it is. There it is. It just came up. Okay, there we go. So as you can see now, what we have is a few new features on the video feeds for... should it be anywhere there's video, so anywhere we're simulcasting by video. And you can see at the top of the screen now has the numbers for Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, although Facebook's a little bit cut off here. So let's go ahead and fix that. There we go. That's the better. Okay. So that will show all of you who are watching the show who's watching from which of the primary platforms, although I don't know if Twitch is really a primary platform for us. It's actually Instagram and Twitter, or X, where we get most of our viewership outside of YouTube. So those are not numbers that this particular application provides, but at least you can see YouTube and Facebook on here, and Twitch if it's interesting to you. There's actually 43 people watching right now. That usually grows to well over 200 by the time we reach the second hour. So we'll see how this works for us tonight. Secondly, we have a QR code on the screen. An easy way for you to support this show. Just go ahead and access that QR code, and you can immediately donate directly through the YouTube app that is connected to the church's account. So it's a quick way to send a donation if you appreciate this show, if you find value in it, and you want to support more episodes, then please, by all means, go ahead and do that. You're trying it out, make sure it works. I think that's what Jamie...
yeah. I'm too far away.
Yeah. Well, you have to zoom into it, and it should come up. Should come up. Let me know if anybody cannot access the QR. But I tried it earlier and it worked.
There it goes.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it gives you an instant way to donate without having to click on any kind of crazy links and try to navigate your way through the Nicolayan website. Now you can just click the QR code and you're all set. I also have that black part of the screen there. I might improve this. This is just a test right now. We'll show the chat, what's being said in chat all across the various platforms. You should be able to see that there, and it's a little bit small. It's a little smaller than I would really like it to be. I don't know if I can make, I can make it bigger, I guess. Let's try that. Let's see how that works. Let's see how this works. We'll keep playing with it throughout the broadcast here. This is just new toys to kind of work with. But once again, this is Vestiges After Dark. I am your host, Bishop Brian Ouellette, here with my co-host, Jamie Wolf. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Hey, good evening, everybody.
And we've got special guest, Tracey, in studio tonight. How you doing, Tracey?
Hello, hello.
All right. She's joining us for the full 3 hours. But we're going to get started here. And this is a benefit to you because we do liturgical libations to get started.
Libations.
So she gets libations. So go ahead and we've had this one before on the air, but let's go ahead and reintroduce it for anybody that's new.
This is the Dalmore, which is my favorite Scotch. It's a Highland, and it's the King Alexander III.
That is a very, very good iteration here.
We opened it up on this show a few weeks ago, I think it was. And as you can tell, it's half gone. Something happened.
Jamie pours.
I don't know what happened.
It is
Speaking
the
of Jamie
Jamie
pour,
pours.
would you like a Jamie
I
pour,
would
Tracey?
love a Jamie pour.
Sweet baby Jesus. Here we go.
Oh Lord.
That is a dram.
She doesn't.
Bishop gets half a
She
pour.
doesn't skimp.
It's a finger. It's good.
She doesn't skimp. I'm still messing with this thing here, trying to get the best.
It's just a count of 4. Oh, and 1 for good luck.
You know, I'll take a little more than this.
Good man.
I'm gonna do it. You guys are
Good
doing it. I'm gonna do
man.
it. Let's go all the way. You know, there we go.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, now we're in business.
He gets the bishop's pour.
Yeah. Well, that's God's sake. Okay, that's.
You want to switch?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I can manage.
I mean, I'll take one for the team.
And do the
You're in
space.
studio. You can run the. If I pass out on
I
the
don't
floor.
know what this is.
Oh, come on. We know better. We all know better.
All right.
All of us have quite the tolerance.
Okay.
I'll
So
put this out of the way
we've
here.
got our Dalmore here.
All the way. All right.
And cheers, everybody.
Prost.
That is a damn good Scotch. It really is.
Sweet nectar.
Oh my goodness.
Dalmore
Fantastic.
King Alexander III.
I want to give a thank you to. I guess I'm probably not going to say that. I'm not going to say the name just in case you don't want me to give your name. But we got $5 donation. Thank you so much for that donation.
Oh, thank you very much.
We really appreciate it. It helps to keep the show on the air. You know, I mean, there's a lot of costs involved in the archives. And
Your
everything
donations do not go towards Scotch. Just to,
They do not. No,
just to make you feel a little better about
We do
that.
pay
That
for-
that comes out of our own
we pay
pocket.
for-
I work
that
hard for
ourselves.
that.
we pay for that ourselves. Okay, so we have Father Chris all the way over on the other side. The other side of the world.
Happy Wednesday.
Yes, in the future we have Father Chris Yates. How you doing tonight, Father?
I'm good. I have the opposite problem I had last week. It's very cold and overcast and rainy here in Sydney. So
It does. It looks like it's wintry in your room there. It's got a strange
dark.
light. It's a little darker.
jumper on and
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've actually left. There's a window right in front of me. I've left it open so unfortunately you have to have my face lit up. So
That's right.
But you'll manage. You'll manage. And good to see King Alexander III being celebrated.
Yes.
King of the Scots from the 15th century.
Have you had this one? This Dalmore?
I have, yeah.
It's a very good one.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. But he presided over the Treaty of Perth, which secured the Western Isles from Norway into Scotland.
Oh, yes.
Little history
And he
lesson.
did that by the classic means that the royals have, which was by pledging to marry a Norwegian princess. And then he kind of got a bonus deal because she died before they could get married. So he got the Western Isles and didn't have to marry the princess. So
Well, that's kind of tragic.
It is. I like it, though.
Maybe they really liked each other, though.
We might reflect on that relationship later on.
Maybe.
Or lack thereof.
I'm still trying to work this out so that it's the least intrusive I can make it. I think that probably looks better right there. But at least you guys can see the chat a little
Right.
bit. You know, that's the whole point here, is to try to get it so that you guys can read a little bit of what's being said in chat. And it just comes up as new chats come in across the internet. You guys who are watching can see it, regardless of where you are. So that's kind of cool. See, that's look how cool that is. You can actually read that, I think. Okay, so we also have Brandon Milan from the great and difficult state of Tennessee.
It's a beautiful
now.
state. It's a beautiful state.
It's a difficult state.
I love the volunteers.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got its pros and cons, and Brandon's given us a lot of the cons, so we have to respect that. How you doing tonight, Brandon?
Okay, I will say Tennessee does have some pros. I mean, we have the Smoky Mountains. Okay, I got to give us that.
It's beautiful. And
you got Dollywood too.
And you got Mennonites. I mean, come on. How many people can say they got Mennonites, you know?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Can't believe I got that look about Dolly. Dolly's a national treasure.
Dollywood.
Dollywood. Well, Dolly
Not Dolly.
Dolly.
Things are always crazy
still
when
lives
there's
in
three
Tennessee,
people
I
at the
believe,
desk.
right?
She does.
Yeah.
Pigeon Forge.
Be prepared. All right. Let's see. So, Brandon, I guess let's go ahead and just jump right in here to questions of the ether, and we'll get started.
All right. The first question. In Isaiah chapter 14, verses 3 through 22, who is the Babylonian king that Isaiah is taunting? I'm finding conflicting answers. The main answer I keep running into is Nebuchadnezzar II, but that doesn't line up with what Isaiah is thought to be written because it was before Nebuchadnezzar was born. So who is the king that he is taunting?
Okay, so this is a very interesting kind of example of how the devil developed into the sort of personality we know today. It kind of starts here in a lot of ways. As far as to answer the question, there's two ways of looking at this. There's two ways of understanding it. Well, first of all, it's not going to line up with any Babylonian king that is a contemporary to Isaiah for a couple of reasons. If you take the purely theological reason, let's rephrase it. If you're taking the purely religious reason, this is because it's a prophetic message. He's talking about something that's going to happen, not something that necessarily is happening. So it's a story being told in a certain way that is expressing a sentiment that is on the horizon in the current moment, which is kind of, I guess, a poetic license again, that is being applied. But more accurately, if you want to look at it from a strictly theological, biblical, historical point of view, it's talking about evil in a general sense. Babylon is this great kingdom that is to experience a great fall. And it is out of pride that this takes place. Okay, so that's sort of the origin of the devil in terms of why he falls from grace. So the word that is being used in this to refer to Lucifer, it's translated in most English Bibles as Lucifer, is in Hebrew Hallel, and which means, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, which means literally morning star. Okay, Lucifer meaning light bearer. Both of these terms are referring not to the devil, never had referred to the devil. This all came later. This was referring to the planet Venus, which would rise up into the sky as one of the brightest stars, brightest things in the night sky other than the moon, and then it would go right back down again. It falls. Okay, so it rises up and then it falls, much like a great kingdom that is on the verge of falling itself, which is what this is referring to. Now, the word Lucifer, morning star, literally though, shining one or light bearer, always refers in this context originally to the planet Venus, which is a symbol of Babylonian power. And even in ancient Greece, phosphorus was also referred to in this same sense of Lucifer. Okay, and it isn't until medieval Latin, once again, the great medieval period, where they got very creative and melodramatic with their demonology, that's when you start to see this term being referred to in the context of a proper name, where now Lucifer becomes the actual name of Satan. It's his angelic name. He's the fallen angel Lucifer. This is where this starts, okay? But honestly, when a person, most English readers reading this in English, do not realize that it's not referring to the devil. Pastors will even give sermons referring to this very passage that you're talking about here as referring to the devil, when it is literally referring to Babylon as an example of excess and pride and how this brings about one's ultimate destruction. Okay. And then this is even further emphasized, to get very esoteric, from last week's. Remember, we were talking about where did the devil actually come from and how it's different in the Old Testament, where there really is no devil, to the New Testament, where now there is this contender that Jesus has to basically go up against, in the desert with the temptation and everything else. And we've referred to how when Jesus strips away the imperfection of humanity by virtue of incarnating it, all right? Because Jesus is without sin. So he can become like us. He can take on our weaknesses, but he can't take on sin. That he would never have. So where does the Yetzer Hara of human nature go when God, who is perfect, enters into the fallen human flesh? Well, esoterically, metaphysically, this is what becomes the devil, okay? Which is why, for the first time, there seems to be this external force that is actually operating in direct opposition to Jesus. Interestingly enough, if we go back to the archetype of Hillel and refer to this as Lucifer, the morning star, associations with Venus in the ancient world, in Revelation chapter 22, verse 16, Jesus is also referred to as the morning star.
Right.
That parallel is exactly what I'm talking about. Archetypally, they are extensions of the same thing. The devil is literally what's left of humanity when Jesus makes it perfect. It's the Yetzer Hara. It's all that's left. And it is sentient, operates sentiently. It is an individuation of evil. It's a personification of evil. And all of that is being prophetically expressed theologically in Isaiah. Okay, so we're not talking about, he's not talking about a historical king here. If he is, it's a prophetic message about maybe Cyrus, but I mean, honestly, it's not really referring to anybody in particular. It's referring to evil in a general sense, which is why this becomes the pivotal point in Judeo-Christian theology for the origin of the devil as Christians have come to know him. So it's a very important message, a very good question. I'm sure Father Chris could add a whole lot to that. So, Father, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what you said is right, I think. But I just wanted to give another example of this principle in the scriptures. So Jesus mysteriously in Luke talks about the Queen of the South, or the Queen of Sheba, the Queen of the South coming to pass judgment on the people of this world. And it's a similar kind of meaning. It's to say that in that instance, somebody who's outside of the people of Israel, in responding to because she responds to Christ, will end up sitting in judgment over Israel. And so the purpose of Jesus saying that and how we're to interpret that is that rather than getting bogged down in who is the Queen of the South and did she really exist and all of that wormhole, there's a very simple understanding, which is to say God loves those who respond to Christ. Mm-hmm. And then you've got this in Kings, in Kings with Queen of the South, but in Isaiah with the same principle of Babylon is the archetype of all that is fallen and that leads you away from God.
Well said. Well said. So, Brandon, that was your question. So you tell us, are you content?
I say I'm pretty content with it.
Okay. I hope so.
His mind is blown.
I hope so.
He's reeling it back in right now.
Okay.
Got to give me some time to adjust.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, you are in Tennessee, so things are going to go a little slower there. But
I didn't say that.
He struggles. I understand his struggle against Southern Protestantism. I get it, because I had to deal with it when I moved to Florida. I think I told this story before. Came from, I grew up when I was a young child in New England, predominantly Rhode Island and Massachusetts on that border. Everything's Catholic up there. At least in my town, it was all French Canadian, little crazy city called Woonsocket, and so it's very French Canadian, all very Roman Catholic. It's just every church is a Roman Catholic church. Rhode Island has a lot of Protestantism, but it's not really in Woonsocket where the French Canadians were. So coming to Florida as a older kid and being put into now no longer Catholic schools, but a Tabernacle Baptist school, this was my first introduction to Protestant Christianity, and I thought, well, okay, they're Christians. How different can they be? I had no idea what I was in for, and so they forced us to go to chapel. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I get to see a Protestant cathedral, see what these places are like, because I'm
Cathedral, not so much.
I'm coming from, again, my church, my home parish, okay, where I went to school before I went to this school in Florida, the Roman Catholic school I went to. All of the art had been imported from Italy in the early 1800s. This was a magnificent European style cathedral, really, is what it is. It's a shame that it's turned into a museum today because the church couldn't afford to keep it going, and so they had to deconsecrate it and turn it into a museum. They wanted to actually knock it down. Somebody saved it, thank God. But anyway, this is what I was used to. So I thought, oh, well, let's see this place. So we're told to report to the gym. And I thought, well, we're going to gather there, to go to this, wherever it is. No. This took place. Chapel was in the gym, and we sat on the damn bleachers. And so I'm like, okay, so this is what it is. So I was asking, I was like, we're supposed to be here? Yeah, this is where it happens. Okay, all right, great, all right. So the preacher walks in, because you don't call him a priest, because he's not a priest, right? He walks in, he comes in with just a Bible, all right? Comes in, goes around, stops and looks at us, completely silent. Not a person in the entire gym was saying a word. He takes that Bible and he slams it down on the ground as hard as he could. Pages go flipping and flying out of it, and he screams out at the top of his lungs while pointing at us all, "You're all going to hell." That was my first introduction to Protestantism, and let me tell you, it left an impression that was not a good one. So, Brandon, you'll never find a person more sympathetic to what you deal with.
They're not all like that.
No, I know they're not. But I will say,
not like that.
I will say, a lot of these Southern Baptist type of places are really, really rough and foreign. Are their hearts in the right place? I think so. I think their hearts are in the right place most of the time, but they're not going to be talking about what we're talking about here tonight, and I guarantee you they're going to think we're going to hell for anything we discuss on this show.
Fear God and love your country.
There you go. So when
and your balls.
So when I criticize Tennessee, that's what I'm criticizing, because Tracy's whole family's from Tennessee, so I can't talk too much bad about it. But it's the way it is.
Watch your mouth.
Well, you were born in Alabama, so you're good.
Hush. Let's not dredge up bad history, all right?
Roll Tide. Roll Tide.
War Eagle, man.
War Eagle.
All right, Brandon, what's our next one?
So the next question comes from Tiffany. She asks, does the being known as Lucifer have any connection with the divine goddess Sophia? Okay,
so I've never heard in any legitimate tradition Sophia referred to as the divine goddess Sophia. That's not a legitimate title. She is not a
goddess of wisdom, presumably.
Yes,
the virtues.
But I mean, I don't know if she would be referred to as the divine goddess. I mean, she is the wisdom of God, not a goddess, though, and not at least in the Christian sense, and even in the pagan sense.
Even in the Greek pagans, yeah,
they don't call her Sophia. It's not. I mean, it's not. goddess of wisdom is not Sophia. I mean, the word Sophia is Greek for wisdom, which is where we get this. Okay, so when you see wisdom written in Greek in the Greek New Testament, it's going to say Sophia. But it has been in the Old Testament, particularly with Proverbs and some of the Deuterocanon, that Protestants kind of threw out. It is a personified entity. And even in the Orthodox Church, and we have it in our chapel, I've shown it before on this channel, Sophia, there's an icon of Holy Sophia, Hagia Sophia, okay? And she is the embodiment of God's wisdom, but not a goddess. Not even in Gnosticism, which is where I think this question's coming from. Because in Gnosticism, Sophia takes a more prominent position, and in some cases, she is referred to in some of the theology. There's a lot of different Gnostic theology. Do we have an issue? Something going on?
No, I thought we had one.
Oh, not in here.
No,
No, we don't have it on the wall here.
I thought you saw something.
I thought you saw something.
Oh no,
flying
I'm
at you.
sorry. Sorry, guys. I thought we may have had.
No, we
a
don't have
picture of her
one.
in here.
She's not in here, unfortunately. But she's in the chapel on the other side of this wall.
Right.
But no, in Gnostic theology, Sophia is sometimes identified in some of the mythology around the Gnostic theology as the actual serpent in the Garden of Eden that sneaks into the Garden of Eden to save man from the evil demiurge, which is the Hebrew God. Okay, and so I guess if you're going to say, is there an association between Sophia and Lucifer? Well, if you combine conventional Christian theology that says the serpent in the Garden of Eden is the devil, and you combine heretical Gnostic theology with the idea that it's actually Sophia trying to save humanity from the evil demiurge, and combine those two, which you really can't do because they're not compatible theologies, then you could say there's an association between the two. But no, there is no, and Gnostics would not have seen an association between the two because Sophia is sort of almost a co-redeemer with Jesus. It's actually, Sophia is like his consort. All right, in a way that she almost takes on a type of almost like a Virgin Mary sort of position in Gnostic theology in that same kind of way, but not a goddess even in Gnosticism, and they don't really consider the devil the same thing because they would say that the devil's actually the Hebrew God, which is not the true God. Gnostics would say that he's a fake God. Sophia accidentally created him. And that he thinks he's God now. And so she comes to save us who we got tangled up in his errors. And the whole reason that, we're trapped here on this planet is because he's enslaving us, not realizing that he's not really God. It's a very complicated thing. Maybe we need to get into or do a show on Gnosticism. That might make sense at some point. But that's the only association one could draw between the two figures, and you have to combine two completely separate traditions to do so.
Is it the archons?
Archons are the bad guys, like the bad forces, and then you have the aeons, which are the good ones. The good ones. Jesus is an aeon. Sophia is an aeon, and the archons are like the forces of the demiurge that sort of do his bidding. Very, very different theology from the conventional church, and you can see why they didn't really take to it too well. Father, any thoughts on Sophia and Lucifer?
What we're dealing with is the encounter that happened in time between monotheistic Hebrew faith and polytheistic, although I would argue not, but to keep it simple, polytheistic Greco-Roman religious practices, and so. But it's important to say that Hagia Sophia is arguably the most important church in the world. Alongside St. Peter and St. Paul in Rome. It is the cathedral in Constantinople. the seat of the Byzantine Empire, called holy wisdom. Now, for Christians, we understand that holy wisdom all finds its source in God. But, in iconography and in the way we, a little bit like Jungian archetypes, we have images of that wisdom to help us to focus on the different aspects of God in which we interact. And so holy wisdom is often portrayed as female, and Sophia has become is a female name. And I think that that's all. That's one in the eye to those that say the church, is just patriarchal and doesn't have any value of women. Really, the reason that wisdom is personified in inverted commas as female is because it's associated with a sort of calm and loving principle. Mm-hmm. So I know the feminists are going to go, why do women have to be calm? And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the persona, the thinking of the holy wisdom of God as a feminine attribute is something that's been consistent from the earliest times in the church.
Well, I think it harkens back to one of the homilies that you gave recently that you were talking about, like why are women more receptive to certain aspects of spirituality?
That was another Brandon question that I did bring into my sermon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But it attributes itself to that. It's that female, feminine archetype. It allows, there's kind of a calmness.
Energy. Yeah.
There's of course, like you said, women don't have to be calm, but by their nature, they tend to be. Mm-hmm. They tend to be, pulling the long hours, with the, quote unquote, with the laundry and the dishes. That lends itself to a lot of reflection, that, introspection and reflection and inner thoughts and everything. Whereas men, they're out there, they're hunting the big beast, and they're bringing down the.
No, there's no question about it. Testosterone in the levels that makes a man. Yeah, it makes us very impetuous, less patient. Less focused on internal stuff, more focused on immediate thing. Yeah, I mean it is genetic,
and it doesn't mean that there's not aspects to each.
Right, of course.
Of each one, of course.
That's why we're complementary to each other.
Disclaimer.
Well, the feminine archetype brings the beastly man back to center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
But also, I mean, you're right. I mean, it goes back. Testosterone makes people more decisive as well, right? Mm-hmm. So now a necessary element of becoming more decisive, and if we go back to the sort of cliche of the caveman, is you want to be decisive when you see a tiger. You don't want to go, I wonder if this tiger is a philosopher.
Gee, does the bear care about me? I don't know.
My cat Heathcliff, he is a true philosopher, though. I will say that. Felines are capable of it.
Philosopher.
So it has its uses, right? But one of the shadow sides of that is that it tends to, because it leads to quicker decision making, doesn't necessarily lead to better decision making.
Correct.
So yes, when you're faced with a tiger, it's better decision making to be a fast thinker. Yeah. But when you're faced with a screaming child who needs feeding, it's best not to be a fast thinker.
Yeah. Right. It's kind of like sorry, go ahead. It's kind of like the archaeological joke where, something is found, this important object, you can tell it's important, we don't know what it is, and it was found in the cooking area of this abode. Yeah. We have no idea what it is, and every woman everywhere is like, it was put in the cooking area to keep it away from the kids. Yeah. It's not a fertility object or anything like that. It was kept, it was put in there to keep out of reach. So it's like, there's...
Get out of the kitchen, kids. Get out of the kitchen.
That's true. It's true.
Well, it's about keeping it close to you.
A lot of those, like, deeper reflective, these are non-existential things, but principles in life are often associated with the female or with the feminine, and there's no mistaking. There are more, especially in the West, there are more women in church than there are men.
Oh, no question about it. Look at this church.
And it's not because they're stupid.
I would say that our benefactor support in this church is a ratio of probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 85% female, and the rest is male. Yeah.
And I think that's fairly typical of a lot of churches
Yeah.
in the West today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stereotypical church lady is a thing for a reason.
Yeah.
So if you are a male benefactor of this church, let's give an applaud
bless
to you
you.
because there's not many of you, but we thank everybody for supporting this church, and we're very grateful
Thanks,
to all
fellas.
the women that do. And
Thanks,
even in
fellas.
Jesus' time, that was true because there are some biblical historians that say that Jesus was actually well financed by the women, that the women were the ones that actually made it possible for him to conduct his 3-year ministry.
And definitely the church in Corinth. I think it was in Corinth. That St. Paul is writing to the
That too.
Corinthians.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure they met in the house of a wealthy woman.
Yeah, I think that's true. I do think that's true. So just so that you guys have a perspective here, we're showing right now the numbers at 2 at Twitch, 24 watching on YouTube, 2 watching on Facebook, but we actually have 70 viewers currently right now. So that goes to show you how many Instagram and X make up. So
Nice.
it's a large number, which is why simulcasting is the way to go. I know it's a lot of extra work and effort, and sometimes it creates a lot of glitches and other problems, but in the end, it really does expand the...
Definitely not bad for a school night.
No, not bad at all. Not bad at all. So thank you all for watching
it's not school
tonight.
night, so.
That's
Okay.
true. They're
Work
on
night.
break. Yeah, they're
There
on
you
break right now, kids. All right, Brandon, what's our next
Maybe
one?
not anymore. Maybe it is year round.
So the third question comes from April. We might have touched on the subject before, but I guess it's always a good thing to revisit them. She asks, what is your perspective of what a portal is? Lots of people say they are doorways to evil, hell, etc. Some say they are wormholes to other dimensions. So what are they?
This is really a metaphysical question. There is no theological answer to have here because this kind of stuff theology doesn't touch on it. So it's strictly a
It just
metaphysical.
depends which Star Trek franchise you listen to.
There you go. Or which video game you're playing.
Or fantasy book that you're reading.
Yeah.
But
Piercing the veil.
yeah, but there is something to it. But what people in the paranormal field, if you can call it a field, are referring to when they say portals, what they really actually are metaphysically are vibrational weaknesses. So to really answer this question, we need to kind of do a very quick survey of what that means. So all of reality from a metaphysical vantage point, and again, we have to draw from Buddhism because, again, Western theology has no metaphysical framework for this. You have to go to the East to get it, and it's nothing that contradicts anything that we believe in the West in any of the 3 major religions. It's not a contradiction. It's a complement. It helps fill some of the gaps in. Buddhism is very good with metaphysics, and it does this very well. Essentially, all things are vibrational. Okay, there's really only 2 things that make up the universe as we understand it: geometry and vibration. There's nothing else. Vibration is as tangible as it gets. Okay, what you think is tangibility is really, again, also a perception of your mind. It's not genuine tangibility. It's just the appearance of tangibility. It's all vibration and geometry. Okay, so this is why I can say that this kind of startles people, but locations don't exist. All right, locations don't exist. What we are referring to as a location is, say, Father Chris is in Australia and we're here in the United States. These are titles we give to the energy vibration that's associated with that particular frequency. So just like tuning a radio, where if you go outside of the band where the song is playing, you'll hear just static. You have to tune in to hear that song. Well, if you want to tune in to the American message, all right, then you have to align yourself with that. So the way we do that is symbolically through the archetypal story of living, which is how we get on a plane or, and fly somewhere. And that changes the vibrational frequency for us to be able to tune into Australia. So if I want to go to tune into Australia, if I want to experience Australia in the way that Father Chris is right now, I can use the symbolic notation of the universe by getting into a plane, which changes my frequency enough to then experience Australia. I don't actually go anywhere. My energy frequency changes when I do that. This is very high level metaphysical occult stuff. I don't expect most of you to even understand what I'm talking about. But in order to answer the question, I kind of have to give some framework here. Okay, so essentially when we're talking about portals, you're talking about vibrational weaknesses where the normal, ordinary vibrational integrity of a particular well, I'm going to say area of energy, which is kind of like how we would interpret to be a location, even though there's not really a location. It's just an area of energy, pockets of energy within the geometry. Some of that, it gets weak. There's just geometrical weaknesses. Just like if you design a building poorly, if you have the wrong angles, or you have, some screw up in the engineering.
Like a bridge over time, vibrationally, it becomes weaker over time. And,
yes.
and it'll have a certain spot that fails.
Because it's still subject to entropy. That doesn't change at all. So everything is always having to work at the basis of entropy. So in order to be able to deal with what a portal is that these vibrational frequencies tend to create weaknesses that are energetically oriented towards the denser frequencies, the deeper frequencies, the lower vibrations, as some New Agers might call it. And that's a perfectly acceptable way of referring to it, as lower vibrations, which is where the demonic tends to vibrate at. Okay, so some of this dark negative energy is also in that same frequency band. And therefore, you could have like a portal to hell. I think there was even a show called that, right? And what it is that the frequency in that is vibrating so low, it's resonating at such a low frequency that it's starting to interact with that demonic level of frequency where negative things happen. We do this. You don't even look. Let's say you're just not into the paranormal. You think demons are a bunch of nonsense. That's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. But you're doing this. You can use real life psychology to try to understand this too, because the more negative, any psychologist is going to tell you this. Okay. I learned this in my first year of psychology. The more negativity you cultivate in your life, the more your life is going to suck.
Absolutely.
That's just the way it works. Okay. So the power of positive thinking is a real thing. That's not even you don't even have to be new agey and be into all that, loosey goosey stuff to believe in to understand that if you cultivate love and happiness, then that's what you get. You cultivate anger and hatred and depression and misery, then that's what you get. Okay, and your life becomes a reflection of what you put out into it. This is really what karma is, you see. Karma is not a punishment reward system. Karma is cause and effect. It's just a spiritual incorporeal version of cause and effect. So you create it's the second law of thermodynamics, okay? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I think it's the second law, right? So that's all this is. That's all karma is, and that's all this is. So these lower frequencies are where this negative, demonic, or what people have labeled as demonic energy, where they vibrate from. And so the lower you lower your frequency, the more you go down, the closer you get to these frequencies and start to experience these demonic events, which is where the portal feels like they're coming through. They're not coming through. They've always been there. It's just the frequency as you intersect with that geometry puts you more in line with that particular vibration, which is where it becomes unhealthy to be in a home that has these kinds of infestations. But the same thing goes for things like prayer and church and chanting and liturgical music and incense. This raises vibration. This brings that vibration up, which gives us a more lofty connection. And so it helps us to resonate more at that celestial level. And that's a portal too, but no one wants to call those portals because, nobody's interested in the good stuff. They all
sexy.
Yeah, they want the demons, they want the devils, they want yes. I mean, nobody wants to see a happy movie, a sappy movie. I'm surprised they made What Dreams May Come. I guess if it didn't have the hell scene, they wouldn't have made it. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, it's like
deep and dark.
If you talk about angels and things, and nobody wants to hear. Remember that show, Jamie? I think Tracy, you might not. I don't know if you remember it or not, but Jamie, you probably do. Michael Landon, Highway to Heaven.
Yes,
you do remember that?
Yeah,
okay, I didn't know if you saw that or not. But it was a big show that was on, and I will say that you could never have a show like that on the air today.
It was on the same.
Remember Touched by an Angel?
I was about to say Touched by an Angel.
Yep.
You never have the show on. Like, no, if it's not dark shit, nobody's into it. Listen to the music. Listen to the 80s. Yeah, I was telling Tracy this the other day. When you go into a doctor's office, a dentist's office, a mall, a supermarket, it's 80s music playing. It's always 80s pop music everywhere you go. That's never changed. It was that way in the 80s. It's that way in the 90s. It was that way in 2000s. It's now in this decade too. And what's very interesting about that is that nobody wants to play the shit that's on the air today. It's not shit because it's bad music. It's shit because it's so negative. It is so negative. It's always a dark message. In the 80s, it's about love, falling in love, how great it is, how great it feels. It's happy. It raises your vibration. It makes you feel good. So, when you feel good, you spend money. When you feel good, you don't get so nervous at the dentist. So that's why they play that stuff. But if you play dark shit like we have on the radio today, you're not going to want to spend. You're going to be depressed. You want to go home, kill yourself, and that's the way it is. And I'm not saying the 80s didn't have dark stuff. I mean, a lot of heavy metal. I know you like heavy metal, but a lot of heavy metal was very dark and not positive. And that they don't play that, do they, in stores?
That was death metal.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, you don't play that. None of that's played or remembered even. It had its thing, but the pop lives on. Everyone knows. You might not like Madonna. I don't really care for her as a person, but everyone knows her because of how prolific it was. Okay,
she was a different person back in the 80s.
Well, yeah, she got dark. She went dark. She stayed
relevant.
relevant. She wanted to stay relevant. A lot of them
ended up going dark to stay relevant.
I know, to stay relevant.
Well, we were talking earlier about like female attributes and the feminine qualities and stuff. You'll never see a movie about a mother being a mother.
No,
you'll never see that. The daily life of a mother, changing diapers.
She's got to be broken, or
you've got to have not failure. Without my child type stuff. Right. You know what I mean? You can't have just the daily grind, which I get. The daily grind of being a mother would not be good movie making, but you don't see positive feminine. No, when you see female role models, it's great, but they're always in a male role. They're always.
But it could be good movie making. I mean, that's the point. I mean, look,
it could be. It could be.
We live in negative time. Any future looking movie is dystopian.
Always.
Well, it just shows you how far the patriarchy is. And that's what true feminism is talking about. It's not talking about you gotta beat down the man or whatever. It's just talking about. Even when women are finding themselves successful, they're finding themselves successful in a male or masculine sort of way. Mm-hmm. It's very rare when you see like Panic Room. I think is a fairly decent example of it. Like yes, there's the thriller parts of it and stuff, but at its core, it's really about a mom doing what she can to protect her kid.
Yes,
Mama Bear.
And I will always watch Jodie Foster because she will do feminine stuff,
and she does feminine. It's not feminism; it's femininity,
right?
But with a very strong, like what makes the female presence strong, not to make her like a man.
Kind of like in Silence of the Lambs. We rewatched it recently.
Yes.
It had been a long time since I had seen it.
That's a brilliant film.
There were lots of themes in it that I had forgotten were there. And yes, she's in a male-dominated role. Yes, she's fulfilling kind of a patriarchal type of masculine sort of role, being in the FBI and everything, but it's very feminine.
Yes,
it's a very feminine twist. She's not being big, bad, brave Wonder Woman, type of stuff. Well, Wonder Woman's a bad example because she's actually pretty feminine. I'm sorry.
Let's not be knocking into Carter now.
That's not what I meant, but she's
Sigourney
not
Weaver either.
Right, but she's she's not.
All of those are very good examples of strong women.
80s.
Yeah.
Yes,
80s. And 80s.
And it goes back to the 80s. It does.
Yeah.
It does.
So
Angela Dickinson was one of the first.
You can definitely have a really good film about a housewife doing ordinary things. Mm-hmm. What's really lacking is we're in a bad philosophical space, which is why we get bad art.
We are,
but also a big part of that is, and it made me laugh so much. Oh no, the writers have gone on strike. I'm like, Is anyone going to miss them?
No.
They are shit writers. Like, no one can write anything anymore. You can have a really, really pared down. Think about like Nefarious, the film.
Oh,
it's
man.
all dialogue.
Ooh.
It's just well written.
Yeah.
It's well written dialogue. That's actually an example of something written recently that's actually interesting.
It's pretty good.
But when you think about it, the most part is two blokes in a room. Or you look back at the classic series like Yes, Minister. Okay, you think, how well written is that? It's absolutely that's why people are still watching it now and laughing, because it's so clever. It's so well written. And so, but actually most stuff today is just garbage, and CGI fills in for a lack of any talent.
Most movies that you see today, it's a one-time thing. You're not going to keep it. They don't allow for cult classics to take place anymore because they'll pull it. They'll pull it from streaming. It never goes to DVD.
People can't study philosophy in a real way anywhere anymore. They graduate with some journalism degree and then they become a writer. And I'm like, you've got nothing to write about. You don't know anything.
That's true. You have to write what you know, and if you don't know anything, what can you write?
Well, that's why AI is a great threat to them, because AI can do their job.
Because AI knows everything.
Well, AI can at least meet what they're putting out right now, and I think that's the threat.
Yeah,
it can't do better. It can't do what peak movie making and art is. It can't do that, but it can do what's being pumped out right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
It can't be Ted Hughes.
Yeah,
but it can be an average screenwriter.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that's been like on our minds, Tracy and I, is Doctor Who and how far it has fallen. As an institution of British heritage.
I'm a fan.
I know. She's got the TARDIS key, and she's got the original series TARDIS key there too. It's a brilliant show. I grew up with this. Like, I mean, one of my earliest memories is watching Tom Baker, and John Pertwee. I mean, I started watching around the transition between the third and fourth Doctor. Saw all of Tom Baker.
Excuse me, it was the 1 billionth and third. Thank you.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm not even going to go there. But, Disney injected their money into it and brought Russell T Davies back, who's a born-again nutcase. And he is just now...
Say it like you mean.
He's putting out pure bullshit. And I'm sorry... Chudigawa, is that, am I saying his name right?
Chudi.
Well, I'm not gonna. I know his mom says, but apparently they say Chudi, right? Chudigawa.
Because that's what he said, but
that's
apparently
what he
he's
says.
wrong.
Okay, well apparently he's wrong. Well,
he said his mom called him and said he was saying it wrong.
He is. He's just not right for the role. It's not. They were trying to make it a race thing. It's not a race thing.
He's antagonistic. He told fans to touch grass.
Yeah, he told fans to touch grass.
There's something ironic about you not being able to pronounce his first name when we don't know the Doctor's name. There's something.
Maybe they know more than we think.
I mean, I was very excited when I heard about that Disney was getting involved and Russell T Davies was back, and then I was very excited
Disney
for
ruins everything.
I was
lately,
and I was excited for Chudigawa. I figured this could be an interesting take to see what happens, but they just turned it into political drivel now. So there's nothing interesting about the stories. That they're all just
very flat.
It's all just political messaging. It has no of the
very heavy-handed,
and they're very nasty about it. So I've lost, as far as I'm concerned. Doctor Who ended with Peter Capaldi's last episode.
Doctor, I let you go.
I let you go, and he really did, because he never came back from that one. Even the specials with David Tennant was all, they were awful. They were awful. They were just.
I have a theory that people objected to going to church because they didn't want to be sermonized every week.
Exactly.
But now they're sermonized every time they put the TV on.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that that's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. Okay, we're going to take our first break here. All right, and then when we come back, we will be talking relationships, and Tracy will answer your questions. So get your questions ready now. Start putting them into the various chats, and our moderators will get them over to us. Okay, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
burning like a fire. What you gonna do when it crumbles down? Watch it get higher, down to the wire. Will you let it burn till we almost drown? Higher, goodbye, honey, where do we lie? Where you're headed, am I going there too? I don't wanna ask why, wanna give this a try with you. And if you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go alone, 'cause it's a big pill to swallow, but you won't do it on your own. And if you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go alone. I don't care what happens now, where we go, how far and how. If you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go. I won't let you go. I won't let you go. And if you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go alone, 'cause it's a big pill to swallow, but you won't do it on your own. And if you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go alone. I don't care what happens now, where we go, how far and how. If you wanna go, I'll follow. Have you made your mind yet? Have you got your heart set? I don't wanna jump half-hearted. Gotta get your feet wet, gotta give what you get. I don't wanna finish where we started. Like the river flowing, tell me where we're going. Take me to a place that's brand new. With every second growing, time feels like it's slowing with you. And if you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go alone. It's a big pill to swallow, but you won't do it on your own. If you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go alone. I don't care what happens now, where we go, how far and how. If you wanna go, I'll follow. I won't let you go. I won't let you go. I won't let you go.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second part of Vestiges After Dark, as we now begin with tonight's topic on relationships, answering your questions and taking your comments. You can call into the show, which is really the best way to get your question answered, and that number is 802-321-0073. That's 802-321-0073. Go ahead and call into the show. We'll take you on the air if you have any question, comment, or story that you would like to share. And of course, all across the internet with the various platforms and their various chat rooms. We'll be taking questions in there as well. Moderators will be identifying them for us so that we can do our best to answer whatever might be on your mind. That's what's coming up here. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back, everyone. And we are already starting to get some questions across the internet. So we are going to start here, I think, with, let me see, I think it was Paula that had a question. My question is, what advice would you give a couple who are at different points spiritually in a marriage? Tracy, how would you like to tackle that one?
Coming out swinging.
Woo, good night, everybody. I think communication is really the key.
I think the key to everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Good night, everybody.
Talk to each other.
Yeah, talk, right.
And talk openly. I mean, I think, there was the point early on when we were, we both have always been on a very similar path spiritually. So I don't think we've ever really had that type of problem, but there was that brief point in time where we were both, living, we had kind of fallen away a little bit, but we were living more Buddhist, but we were both being called by God to return to Catholic, or
to the church,
for him to return to Catholicism, and for me to become Catholic, and to become Christian. I wasn't baptized, and neither one of us knew how to quite broach the subject with the other one, because we both had very strong opinions.
Well, I thought that you would think that I lost my mind.
Yeah, and I thought you would think I lost my mind. Because we had both been Buddhists for so long.
Well, we were married in a Buddhist temple by a Buddhist nun. That should tell you something about how serious we were about our Buddhism. And
it came down to a Holy Week. We were house sitting for family, and so we had unfettered access to History Channel and National Geographic Channel and all these little offshoot Discovery channels that back in the day around Holy Week they would play. Many different documentaries about Jesus and the historicity of Jesus, and was Jesus real, and what would it look like, and blah blah blah. And so we had been watching a lot of that. We had been listening to Jesus Christ Superstar, and
leave it to Andrew Lloyd Webber to fix everything, right?
And so we sat down to dinner about halfway through the week, and he said, "I need to talk to you," and I was like, "Great, because I need to talk to you too." And it basically, you first, no, you first, and it just basically it almost came out at the same time.
Yeah, I did.
Where we both were like, I'm feeling a call, and we were both very receptive to quote unquote being called. Before it was, the universe or, whatever, but we were both extreme, our whole path and journey together had been about being receptive to hearing God's whispers. And,
Yes.
the whole foundation of our relationship was based upon that. And,
Which I don't think is...
we both had a deep respect for that, I think.
Which
And
I don't think is typical.
yeah.
So the issue here, of course...
So it's hard to be able to give concrete advice.
There's no one answer, one size fits all answer to this question.
Each relationship is different, but I think it really just boils down to communication, finding that common ground and finding the common ground between the two spiritualities. Like if you hold one belief and, your partner holds another belief, there's going to be commonality. Maybe not between every spirituality, but there's going to be a common ground of be a good person.
Just agree to respect each other's beliefs.
So, once you find that common ground and can build upon that, I think you can kind of see the branches that are going to naturally branch off and maybe even bring things back together to where maybe you find that you have more common ground than you thought. And maybe it would eventually, I'm not saying it would, but maybe it could lead to eventually, one conversion or the other.
I think the real challenge...
But I don't think it has to be a conversion. I don't think a successful relationship has to be on the same spiritual path, but I think it helps.
No, I don't think it has to be at the same, but I think
it helps a lot.
I think the real issue...
I think it really puts a big obstacle in the way.
I think the real issue has to come back down to trying to fundamentally grow with the other person. You can't take the luxury of growing in different directions, which I think as you get older, you tend to do anyway.
Well, there's a tendency for relationships to focus on the stagnation of it.
Right.
You're not the person I married. Well, gosh, I hope not.
Yeah.
The expectations are not realistic.
Right.
For in a lot of situations, and so that creates, I think, unnecessary conflict. I'm sorry for everybody on the screen. I'm trying to find the right way to make this work here. For those of you watching, you're probably seeing all these these crazy things moving across your.
Stop it.
Well, I have to get it. I have to do it while I'm live.
I'm communicating with you. You need to stop it.
Okay, well.
I'm just going to sit here and drink scotch.
Try to make it happen. We're going to try this. I think this works good. Let me know if you like the black bar going all across the bottom where I think everything, I think that looks good. And we still have we should still have the chat box showing up too on the right side there next to the QR code, which you can donate and support the show. Please click that, that QR code and give a donation to keep the show on the air. Okay, so back to what I was saying. You have to grow with the other person.
Yes.
Okay, and if you're growing separately, you're going to have problems. No matter what you do, no matter, you can have the same religion.
Because if you're growing separately, you're growing apart.
You're growing apart. And that can happen because, no one's the same person from one moment to the next, let alone, the relationship as an entity itself. That's always in flux too. You have to look at your relationship as its own entity, separate from your individuality. You have to. You have to be able to take on those different roles. It's just like I was telling, we got into a discussion on the Nicolaitan Network today about identities and things like that. And I said, well, who am I? Who is the I in me exactly, right? Is it the bishop? Is it the exorcist, the pilot, the foodie, the scotch drinker, the moody guy who, is pissed at the world sometimes? I'm all of these things. And they're not me at any given moment as an identity. These are things I become in the various moments as the universe calls me to function in those particular capacities. So when you're in a relationship, whether it be, Brian the dad or Brian the husband, I have to be able to take on an identity within that marriage, within those relationships. So each individual relationship is its own identity too. And I think what it is that people want to see themselves as this finite thing. You are not any one finite thing. You are never going to be one finite thing. You are a thing in constant flux made up of billions of things, whether they be the corporeal things like all of the billions of cells in your body or the archetypal animations that make up the incorporeal parts of your so-called identity. But you're always in flux. So a healthy marriage understands this, recognizes this, and moves with it. So really, when people are having a hard time with a relationship, what it really is, it's not that they don't understand each other, they're fighting and all this stuff, as much as it has to do with the simple fact is they don't like change. And they certainly don't like seeing something they used to love change into something that they don't like as much. That's what the problem is.
I think that's what happens when you don't grow together.
That's exactly what happens.
It's like, we don't.
But that's the common thing.
Right.
To not grow together. You have to make an
one day
effort.
you wake up and you're like, whoa, this person is completely different.
Correct.
I can also
Go ahead.
add to animosity. Say one's moving forward in their spiritual journey, the other one isn't. Then the one spouse becomes jealous of your faith, and then that can cause a problem as well. Mm-hmm. Because why you're always at church? Why aren't you at home? You're always doing this. Why can't you be with me?
Yeah.
So that can lead to major issues.
It does. It leads to major issues, and you can't fall victim to those temptations. Those are true seductions.
Well,
You could even call them evil.
Yeah. I think a lot of it harkens to, that the goals in spirituality also need to be taken into account too, because some people look at spirituality as that thing you do for 1 or 2 hours once a week.
Right.
Whereas other people live, breathe, eat, sleep their spirituality.
Correct.
So I think, it really just boils down to communication. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, I'm saying this based on partnerships and relationships being male and female. So this next bit is directly related to that. But, a lot of the, stuff that's been coming out with science lately is that, women are on a 28-day hormonal cycle, whereas men are on a 24-hour hormonal cycle.
It's true.
And so men seem like, we were kind of talking earlier about how women are kind of like the calm and everything. And the men are, but, you can kind of argue with the whole, decisiveness and everything that come with men. They're able to do that because they're literally the same thing at 3 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
As long as, their habits haven't changed or anything like that.
Unless you're a cancer, then you're not.
But how they feel at 3 p.m. is generally how they're going to feel at 3 p.m. any given day. And that's just not the same for the woman. So, a woman goes through cycles where, certain things nag at her a little bit more, and certain things are going to irritate you a little bit more than they would earlier. And so, there's that difference of perception, I think, that comes into play. And so I think open communication really helps with that. I mean, we argue. I mean, we're not...
Which is also healthy, because that's communication. As long as it's productive arguing. You don't want, nasty insults and, deal-breaking kind of comments where it ends up where the cops get called and someone gets taken downtown.
You don't need to be throwing things. Don't throw
keep it in
things.
and fill it fester either, because that'll explode into one of those arguments.
You need to have you need to be able to communicate. Sometimes that means arguing.
You need to be able to say, when this happens, I feel this. You need to be able to say that to yourself, to your partner, to your boss, to your coworkers. You need to be able to say that to anyone in your life.
Look, same rules.
This can apply to any relationship.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
It doesn't have to be intimate relationship.
The same rules apply across the board.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, don't you have to also be open to the with oneself, open to the idea that your feelings as a reaction to something might not be particularly helpful or accurate.
While they're valid that you're feeling them, they might not be valid in fact. There's a difference. There's a difference between, yes, it's valid for you to be feeling whatever it is that you're feeling, but it might not be based in reality. So you have to be able to acknowledge the rational side of it and say, I'm mad, but I'm also aware that it's irrational for me to be mad.
Yeah. I like that.
And the rest of the world doesn't need to formulate itself around my feelings.
Correct.
Right.
I'm having a bad day, so I'm going to be a mean person to the cashier because they didn't count my change back correctly or whatever. Yeah. It doesn't give you free license to be a jerk.
Right.
To anyone.
Because you don't know what that person's going through. You could start a domino effect of negativity.
Well, that's where the whole random act of kindness comes in. You do a small random act because you just don't know.
Paying it forward in the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Heck yeah.
Well, I will say I don't like to pay it forward. I like to be like, okay, let me give that to you. You can't really do it at Chick-fil-A. I don't think they accept tips. But drive-thrus like Starbucks or something like that where they accept tips. I'm like, what was it? What was the bill? what was my bill going to be? Whoever paid for it, let me give that to you. Because paying it forward to the next person who was already anticipating buying it, that's one thing. But tipping out the people, that's what I like to do with the pay it forward. But yeah, but I mean,
either way,
it
whatever
all-
makes you happy.
yeah, because it's changing someone's day.
It's work. Yeah.
I think the moral
was
of this
just saying.
story, to answer this question as completely as possible, is to understand that all relationships need cultivation, need care, and cognizance. You can't go through life, on autopilot. I know that's what your brain wants to do. That's what you're designed to. I saw Tiffany talk about how she's impressed at my ability to multitask and maintain my train of thought. That is a challenge, but that comes from that kind of mindfulness in all things. And that's what's helped me to be a pretty good pilot back when I was flying planes, because, you kind of have to be able to do multiple things at once. It also helps play the piano. There's a mindfulness to it. When you just go on autopilot, guess what? It all gets jumbled up in there. You get confused. You lose your place and you don't know what you're doing. And that, I'm not going to say that doesn't happen to me when I'm really tired. It does. You've probably seen it happen on this show.
And that's my joking. I'm making jokes, but I do genuinely believe that you are a good multitasker. And
I mean,
I was making jokes, but yeah, you are.
I'm not as good as I'd like to be, but I can see what people are saying.
Yeah.
But the point is that
You're really good at this.
that comes from, because I'm doing it for a while, but I mean, it comes from mindfulness. It comes from mindfulness, I think. Thank you, though. I do
You were
appreciate
good from the beginning. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Words of affirmation.
I'll take it. Yeah. I mean, I people think I'm kidding, but I really was one of the first podcasters. I was on there in Blonde Talk Radio back in the day when people didn't even know.
I have the seer.
We used to do it with the telephone back in those days.
Yeah.
You didn't have anything that you could connect to your computer to make that work. Podcasting wasn't a thing. So you had to call into a phone number and you'd talk on your receiver and they would broadcast your phone conversation. And anybody could log into it.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. It was interesting because it had a little community and it was fun. There wasn't many of us doing it, so it was easy to get guests because everyone was dying to be on this new platform. So it was fun. It was fun.
Hiding
those
in the
days.
back room, trying to shield the phone.
Yeah.
I got the baby in my lap.
Yeah.
To keep the oohing
And then the A-list celebrities got involved, and it all went to shit. It all went to shit.
Influencers,
After
man,
that.
they ruin everything.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's true. So I don't know, Paul, if that answers the question, but I think really the key is communication, mindfulness.
Communicate and be willing to grow together.
Yeah, and that willingness to grow. And that's true for all relationships. It's just intimacy has that special component where you have to take even more care because, let's face it, there's more to lose. There's more at risk the closer you are to someone. So, the kind of mindfulness that's needed to have a good relationship with your boss is going to be less severe than the kind of relationship you need to have with your spouse. So you have to kind of measure the investment, appropriately and ration it out.
So this kind of, I had 3 bullet points that if we didn't have questions that I was going to talk about. And
let's bring one up.
Well, one of them is related to this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And one of them is, have an interest in what interests your partner.
Yes.
Like even if it bores you to tears, have an interest in it because it brings them joy.
Yes.
So it can go into that's the same thing with the spirituality. Be interested, ask educated questions, read something, open a book, talk about the thing that, whether it's spirituality or video games or movies or whatever, have an interest in what they have an interest in just because they have an interest in it. There's a joy that comes in seeing someone else thrive and be happy in the thing that they enjoy, even if it means absolutely nothing to you.
If you take part in it with them, you may begin to understand why they are so into that.
And then eventually it becomes something that you like because you're like, hey, I'm going to start looking at this. Like I've got 2 good examples of this. I've got one with Brian and I've got one with my sister. Okay. So the first one is Brian. I did not understand gambling at all. I had no interest. I thought it was a terrible vice. I thought it was
a terrible vice.
I thought it was only a den of iniquity in the casinos. I had no idea that, it is what it is. And
now you're a freaking craps gambler.
Roll them dice. But I love craps.
I know. I've seen it.
And I genuinely love it. It's not because
she plays it longer than I do now.
Yeah, I do. I like it. I just love the culture of it, and
it's a fun game.
It's just hanging out with the people at the table and everything.
Different characters.
It's high energy.
Cutting up with the dealers.
Even Jamie gets into that one.
Yeah, I love the cast of characters around the table.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't stand when the dealers have no personality because it's like, this is the whole point. I'm supposed to be having fun.
Right.
But yeah, so I had no interest in it, but because, I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to read up on this and that, and I'm going to, get this computer game and start learning some of the games just to see what is it that, I love him and he loves this. So what is it about this that captivates him? And then that snowballed into, okay, I'll sit down and watch this documentary with you. Okay, I'll watch Vegas Week with you. Okay, I'll watch, this show about Las Vegas. So it snowballed into this thing where now it's like, hey, that new, did you see that new documentary that came out? Let's watch that. Let's see. Oh, let's watch, the people doing a walk down the strip or whatever. It's something that, now brings me joy, but it started out as showing interest in something that brought him joy.
Well, Outlander's
and
the
and the
opposite.
Outlander is the
That
thing for
way.
you. The Outlander was a show that I was watching, and he'd be off on the side doing whatever, and then he'd look over and
Get
go
sucked
back to
into
work,
it.
and then he'd look over and go back to work, and then eventually he would just turn and sit and watch. And so it turns into a thing where you genuinely start finding joy in it in of itself.
Yeah.
And it naturally builds
The
that
heart
way.
of that though is that you actually have to you have to enjoy spending time with the other person.
That's true.
I mean,
That would be
Presumably you do if you're in a
prerequisite.
relationship with them.
because I understand that there's all sorts of reasons that people get attracted to each other, or
Yeah.
look, hey, sometimes what happens is you get together with somebody, someone ends up pregnant,
Oops.
so you just got to make it work, right?
If
Yeah.
only
You
we
gotta make it
knew what
work,
causes
and-
that.
Yeah, and so look, sometimes if people are in that category, they've got to do an awful lot of work to make things happen right. Okay, but the sort of if you're actually with somebody who you like hanging out with, who basically you would choose to hang out with them over anybody else, then it doesn't really matter what they're into.
Yeah.
You like hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
be friends
when-
first.
And actually, you see, a big part of, look, that you're effective communicators when in fact you could go on a long drive and you don't have to talk to each other.
You don't have to feel that silence. Yeah.
You can just comfortably be in silence with each other.
I have a-
because you're in the place you want to be. You're with that
Right.
person.
Yeah. I have a friend, she calls it when she and her wife, when they are each doing their own thing, but they're in the same room, she calls it parallel play, which is something that like toddlers do, where, I'm over here playing with the kitchen and you're over there playing with the trucks, but we're playing together, even though we're not playing the same thing. So she calls it parallel play when we're both in the same room, we're both enjoying the company that we have, but we're not doing the same thing. And I think there's something to be said for parallel play.
Yeah, you don't feel compelled.
We do that
to
a lot.
strike
Yeah, we
up
do that a lot.
conversation. Yeah.
You'll be watching whatever, and I'm watching whatever. Or,
I mean, there's times
I'm
where
sleeping.
in the afternoon where we'll spend like the late morning, early afternoon in the pool, and then ready to get out, but it's still too early for dinner. So a lot of times I'll have a cigar. Sometimes she'll have one with me. I'll have a cigar.
Another thing I didn't like before.
Yeah, I'm a bad influence.
Do you know what? With you being on the show, Tracy, all I can think about is smoking cigars
By that fire pit.
Yeah, with you
It's a good
guys.
time.
Because you're all here.
Yeah.
You're all here.
Yeah.
It's a good time. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, we just need Heathcliff back here. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I missed that.
yeah, well, you'll do it. We'll do that soon. But the thing is that with I'll be smoking a cigar. She might have one. She might not. She'll be reading some novel that I'll never read in a million years.
Nope.
And I'll be playing.
But I tell them about it.
I'll be playing Pai Gow tiles on my iPad, and it's just an enjoyable afternoon.
And then at the end of the
we're
day,
together.
you go, "Oh, that was a good day."
Yeah, what? Yeah,
Because you're enjoying the same space together.
that's exactly it.
yeah.
So there's little things that you can do, but I think you can't underestimate what Father Chris just said.
Yeah.
You have to like each other first, which gets back to what we
That's a
said.
plus.
What we said on the last show, not the last show in the season, but the last time we were all on together with Tracy, where we said what's essential is that you have to be friends first.
Yeah.
You can't let the sexual or the the physical components start before you've had the friendship. Now that doesn't always. You don't always have the luxury of that, because there's sometimes where you find someone attractive, it becomes a date, then all of a sudden things happen. But the problem with that is if you go that route, and it can happen, And it's not like all hope is lost, but what you have to do, if that's the way you went, is you have to now build the friendship. You can't just keep going on the good sex and hope that that's going to sustain you for the rest of your life, because that won't. You're not always going to have that, okay?
The sex tapers off after a while.
I mean, I'd say, you're
Feel like rabbits for a little while.
For about 3
then when
months,
you become
it's like
comfortable
rabbits,
with
yeah.
each other,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you want it? No, we're good. Let's
Yeah.
watch Netflix. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well,
But-
with very young couples that used to come to me for, we want to get married, and we have the pre-marriage course and what have you. When part of that is about physical attraction and sex and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I say, and they're young, I'm of them as young as like 17 that want to get married. I'm like, okay. But then when I say, and so all of that is physically attracted and everything's great. You're going to be married to an 80-year-old one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're going to be an
Hopefully.
80-year-old one day,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
And so actually, what do we mean by sexual attraction? If what we mean is she's a size 6 and,
She ain't gonna stay a
that's not gonna be
size 6.
forever.
Nope.
Yeah, she's a size
she
6
eats.
20-year-old. Great.
Yeah.
So, but if you're only attracted to size 6 20-year-old, your marriage is doomed.
You're
Right.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Because you'll find another one. Yeah, exactly.
Who himself did not stay a size 6. I'm just saying, bro.
I have to always remember to turn
misogyny's
off.
alive.
I always have to remember to turn off the
What did you do?
I always forget to turn off the volume on my phone, so you hear it over the microphone, and that's just getting used to this system. But we now have a caller from the 208 area code in Idaho. Hello, you are on the air.
Hello, this is Mateo.
Hey, Mateo, how's it going?
And hey, I was just I have a question about I guess I'm trying to word this correctly, because I was thinking, just like as a Catholic teenager, I guess how, like, when I'm looking for, if we're not looking for, but if I, let's say I find like a girl or something that I want to talk to, or I find attractive, how would I like approach Catholicism with them, or even just being Christian? Like, how much should that, because I feel like it's easy to say like, oh, well, are you Christian? And if they're not, just like walk away. But I feel like, I guess, how do you approach that?
Tracy, you want
At
to
the
go?
beginning of a relationship.
You want to go first, and then I'll follow up with you.
Well, I think the hard part about that is that in this modern age, particularly, you're gonna lose out on a lot of viability by immediately dismissing someone because they don't already have the faith. I think a lot of people kind of, if they find the faith, they find it later in life. But I don't really.
There's a lot of good people that are not necessarily part of the faith. Right.
Because less and less people are being brought up in the faith.
Right.
Yeah, so
And-
you're going to have a harder time
That
finding
doesn't
it.
mean they're
Exactly.
not good people.
Right.
And so I don't think it's a good, I don't think it's necessarily, if let's say you have, this is a terrible example, but let's say you have 10 bullet points and she hits 9, but the one that she doesn't hit is that she's not part of the faith. Is it really worth, putting her on the reject pile? Thinking about like resumes and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to be
Yeah,
like,
I've got a big stack.
Yeah.
lots of candidates.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I think it just harkens back to communicate, be friends, and and see where things go.
I think
I think
think
it's only a real problem if they're hostile, if they're really
right.
hostile
Yes,
to
exactly.
the Christian faith.
we're operating on the
I
presumption
reckon-
that this hypothetical person would be a otherwise good and decent person.
The few men in Australia my age and younger that go to church and basically have come to faith because they dated a girl that was a Christian.
Yeah, it happens.
To dismiss it out of hand is wrong. I think the only issue is if it's hostile, because then you end up in a situation where you might end up down the road in marriage where you're going off to church and on a Sunday, and that's resented by your other half. They don't want to
Yeah,
sacrifice.
that happens
Like
a
was
lot.
mentioned in the chat where they got the silent
Yeah.
treatment every time
And
they went to church.
that's cancerous. I mean, that destroys. That destroys basically.
Absolutely.
There's no way through
I think the other aspect to the advice is that I think that there's a lot of eagerness in young people in their teens, in their young adulthood, to get started with life. I think there's a lot of pressure that's maybe self-imposed and maybe a little societal, where it's like if you're not in a relationship, you're already behind. It's kind of like, the age-old joke.
That's a big
Not
problem.
so much now, but
Well, it's
back when we were growing up, you were
it's still a
expected.
it's still
Hey,
a
you're
big-
out of high
It's still-
school. Are you going to college? You gonna get married? What are you doing?
I think
It's a
it's
big
less
problem
societal
still.
now, but I do think it's very personal now.
Yeah.
I think there is a personal push where people are like, I'm not meeting certain milestones. It's kind of it's kind of like the
Expectations.
joke, hey, I'm pregnant. Oh, great. Have you signed up for a preschool yet? Like,
Right.
like there's this push
Yeah, and whose
of
milestones are they
constantly
concerned about?
being ahead of the curve. And I think take it slow.
Whose milestones are they allowing to dictate their life?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I
That's a
think
really-
just
a
let things
question we should
happen
ask
naturally.
ourselves.
Yeah. Just
Yeah, where's this expectation coming from? Do I want to submit?
your
to-
life
to-
will be there. You will wake up day by day by day, and your life will be there whether you push for it or not. And pushing for a relationship
have-
just to have a relationship is not, is.
Oh, God,
I
I know
highly
people like that.
caution.
I know people who
against
cannot
that
be
type of
alone.
mentality.
Yep.
Take it slow. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the slow path, especially these days. No one looks down on you. Oh, you're living in sin if you're with someone and you're not married. Like people regularly will be in a relationship for 10 years before there's even a proposal. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong.
Well,
with that.
the problem then with that is then you start to get into the moral conflicts with a person's church or their religion, where
Right.
that
Right.
might not be very well looked upon if they're an active member
Correct.
of their community, their
And
parish.
the statistics are against them too.
Yeah.
Like people,
Yeah.
people that live together before marriage, the divorce rate's higher.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
because the new fancy toy loses its flashbang.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's all great until you start sharing bills.
yeah. Well, it's kind of like everything in moderation, including moderation. So every piece of advice that I could give about a relationship, take with a grain of salt.
I think the real challenge,
It's
honestly,
all based on the individual couple.
I think the real challenge is hoping that you can find somebody that's not necessarily Catholic or even Christian, but
Genuinely
is
good person.
finding somebody that is going to be able to grow with you into your faith if they're the ones that don't have one. The real challenge, and I would actually caution you to stay away, the reject pile we were talking about, I would probably save that for people who are already strong in another faith. I don't think that's going to work, because if you're really strong in your Catholicism and they're really strong in Buddhism or Wicca or Islam or something, that's just not going to work. There's just not enough compatibility there to last an entire lifetime, together. But if a person is like most, and this is where you have an advantage, Matteo, because the advantage is that most people today are not being raised with any kind of faith. So if they see in you something that they like, and then they start to learn that, well, maybe this thing that I love so much about them actually is being fostered through their faith, that could bring them to grow into the faith through you. Not that you get involved with the intention to change them or convert them. I would very much caution against that.
Yes.
But this is what the whole courting period's for anyway, to see where you both stand in this, and to take, if 2, 3, 4 years even, you don't have to jump right into engagement. The real other challenge on top of that one is, of course, that today the expectation is to get sexually intimate almost immediately.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
And
What's your name?
there's-
Okay, do we get naked or what?
And there's something wrong,
yeah.
and then people say, "Oh, there's something wrong with you if you're not pushing for that."
Yeah.
Girls will even think that you don't find them attractive from a male
Right,
point of
they'll be
view.
offended, yeah.
I experienced this. Look, I was fresh out of seminary. And I realized that I was not going to be I'm not going to be a Roman Catholic priest. I realized that was not going to happen. So I got out of seminary. I left the seminary, as we talked about last week, and I told you why. And then I went into putting myself through undergraduate school as a student of psychology, sociology. And when I entered into the secular life, I said, well, I guess I can start dating now. I held off because what was the point? I'm not going to fall in love and then have it interfere with my priesthood. So when I discovered my vocation, which was at 17, it's like, well, no more dating for me. I'm done. And I held true to that until the age of 22. And so at the age of 22, I started pursuing girls again because I could, but I'm still very much a seminarian with a very solid, Christian Catholic moral foundation. Sex was not the first thing on my mind. It wasn't even the second or third or fourth thing on my mind. And so when I went on these dates, these girls were offended that I didn't try anything. Mm-hmm. Don't you find me attractive? And I'm like, I thought I was being a gentleman, but I guess that doesn't work today. Yeah. So you've got challenges in that respect too that would need to be worked out. So number one is throw out anybody that's already strong in another faith. That's just not going to work for you. Okay. Protestantism might, but then again, if they're like hardcore evangelicals thinking the world's ending tomorrow because, Joe Biden's in office, you're probably not going to throw that one away too, because you're never going to be able to relate
solar eclipse.
Yes, exactly. That's just not going to work. So, if you have a Protestant interest that, is open to Catholicism, respects it, that could work. But if you find someone that's just not raised in the faith, has no faith and can grow through you, that would probably be an exceptionally ideal thing. That's what happened with Tracey and I, in a way, because we were both kind of interested in Buddhism, and I was she wasn't. She came into it through Buddhism. And then when I realized that I was being called to return to the Catholic faith, God did me a favor and called her at the same time, so it wasn't much of a challenge. But we did kind of grow together, and she grew through my faith, because it wasn't like walking into a church for the first time and not knowing what to do. I could say, well, I know the Catholic faith, so I can explain everything to you. So, it was easy for me to be able to help her to grow in the faith, and this is something you could do for someone too. As far as the sexual component, though, that's where I think the communication thing comes in, because I do think that this is an exceptional challenge for young people today. I think that there is, in some ways, and I'm going to sound really, I'm not being permissive of this, but I will say in today's day and age, there is also something to be said for getting to know someone before you commit a lifetime to them. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have sex with them, but unfortunately, sometimes getting close to someone can lead automatically to that.
There's an intimacy that comes from living together that doesn't necessarily have to be sexual.
You can make that work, although it's difficult, but it can work, and of course you're going to be judged for it, because people that
you're living in sin.
They're not going to believe you. But I wouldn't worry so much about that. I do think you do need to. I think there has to be a medium between where you could do anything you want kind of society that we're living in now, and the extreme puritanical morality of you don't even look at a girl until you're married to them. I mean, there has to be something right in the middle of that.
There's a really weird thing that's gone on with sex, though, in the last 10, 20 years, which is we have this phenomenon where, there's no societal pressure on whether you do or don't. Yeah. If you have sex with multiple people, in the main, no one cares in the West. And we've got apps on your phone where you can just meet up and have sex. Right. But the weird thing is that people will do the most explicit sexual acts with one another. Yeah. But actually would find it hard to just
have a conversation,
and kiss one another. Like it's
hold hands.
Weird, and so we've kind of had this total separation of sexual acts from intimacy. So I would argue that people who are really promiscuous, who are on Tinder and all the rest of it, having sex, they have no intimacy in their life at all.
No, because they don't
it's not a replacement.
Realize there's a difference between intimacy and sex. Intimacy has nothing to do with sex.
And romance and sex.
Right.
Sex is a sort of
A culmination.
it's an effect of intimacy,
Yeah, it's one of the...
which is what you have to be mindful of when you are in a relationship and trying to maintain a Christian moral foundation.
I think ultimately, in relation to young people, I think the important thing is to, find something that interests you, pursue those interest groups, meet someone through that, share that, continue sharing, add new subjects to the conversation, add new things to be doing together, grow together. You have all the time in the world. It sounds contrite. I know it sounds like, I get it. I was there at one point too. But you have all the time in the world. And there's no reason for you to be in a relationship right now.
Well, the other thing to keep into mind too is that the best relationships are the ones that happen organically. The ones you try too hard for
You're pigeonholing it,
are not necessarily the best ones. God tends to know this is the tough thing. This is where discernment comes in. So let's add that component to the whole mix of what we're talking about, because this is an exceptionally good question.
Yeah.
But discernment is another part of it that the world is largely lacking in. So there's a difference between, trying to force every single person to work because you're so desperate for a relationship and, just saying, well, I'm going to just let God take care of it. And then you do nothing and then nothing ever comes your way. It's just like, if you're asking God to help you and you're praying a prayer of intercession for something to happen, sitting on your ass and doing nothing is not going to necessarily make it happen. God's not going to just send you what you need in the mail and then you're going to get it. You're going to have to get out there and make yourself available. This is very true for a relationship. You have to put yourself at risk. You have to be vulnerable, but you don't have to be stupid.
Right.
That doesn't mean vulnerable means that you just, let whatever happens happen. So you have to be really smart about it. And honestly, I think it's a little easier for a male than it is for a female, because whether we like it as a society or not, there is a subconscious, I think, action that takes place in relationships where the men are expected to lead the way in a certain way. It's kind of seen as a little bit off-putting to some people, even in today's day and age, when the woman is the aggressor in the relationship or pushes too hard, or the first one to make the kiss, the first one to ask the person out on the date. I mean, in today's day and age, that's acceptable, but not many people do that still. They wait for the man to kind of lead the direction. So you have a little more power in controlling how far the relationship goes than you would if you were actually a girl, which is much more difficult, I think. If my advice would be a little bit different to a female on that basis, only because of it.
The risks are higher.
Well, yes, because they're the ones that get the baby, and if the guy takes off, they're the ones that are stuck with the consequences. We're not. So there's a lot that you have an advantage, unfortunately, biologically, sociologically. You have an advantage, which is unfortunate in the grand scheme, but fortunate for you in the sense that you can probably shape the dimension of the relationships you get into as you go. So make yourself available, but don't try too hard is the secret here. Pray to God, let him act, but put yourself into positions where he can act. Staying in your bedroom all day, all night, never going out of the house is not giving God room to act. I'm saying that you're doing that, but I'm just trying to say for anybody that thinks that you can find a relationship that way, that's not how it works. Sitting around typing on the internet is probably the worst thing you can do. There was a time where you could do that. The internet sucks today. I would stay away from the internet. You have to be actively involved in real people.
He says on the internet.
Yeah, well, of course. This is a show. This is different. I'm not talking Snapchat here.
Snapchat's not the place to be.
Not the place to be, no.
So it circles back around to just, communication, and just let it happen. Just let things happen the way that they do. You'll know in the moment as a couple.
Yeah.
What needs to happen. You'll know.
You will. And that's
If
the
you're
discernment
communicating.
part.
If you're both open and communicating,
Pray for
you'll know.
discernment for sure. Pray for discernment is a prayer. Everybody, whether you're looking for a relationship or not, that's what you need in every aspect of your life. Relationships just one of those areas where it works, and I'm going to tell you right now. I have a successful marriage today because that was always my prayer. I lived my life by that as a seminarian, and I took that same prayer with me into secular life, and it is what shaped my ability to be like, I know what I need to find, and I know how to find it because I put myself into positions where God could act, and that's how it worked. Now, I can't promise anything because it's really about your relationship to God, and it also has a lot to do with what God's will is for your life.
You got to be, when you're praying, you got to be willing to listen. You got to be willing to listen for the answer.
But Bishop Brian, you've touched on something important, which is that there's a sort of cliche tendency for married men or men in relationships with women to do the whole, it's because she's so good, it's because she's so tolerant, I'm terrible at this, to play ourselves down.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's really unhelpful. I think what makes a relationship work is that actually lots of men try really hard and are actually quite sophisticated in how they commit to making it work.
The modern,
so I don't like that cliche. It's all because she's so wonderful.
What'd you say?
And you're really pointing towards that because you're saying, I was praying about it, I was thinking about it, you're showing how considered your approach was to relationships, and I think that's true of most married men, or men that end up in marriages.
I can say, and I'm not
displaying good behaviors.
I'm not patting myself on the back, and I think being a seminarian, being in formation to become a priest helped me a lot in this regard. Ironically, because I was being shaped for celibate life, but also being shaped to be able to communicate with mostly couples. So, it's a weird paradox, but it gave me a lot of foundation. But outside of that, I can say, though, that not to pat myself on the back, but I have always lived my life with that kind of mindfulness. I was never the sexual intimacy, the emotionalism that sometimes gets people into trouble was not a consideration for me. What I wanted was a friend that I could spend my life with, and that would also have the viability for all of the obvious necessary things for a healthy marriage, which does include, of course, sexual attraction. You need to have that. There's nothing wrong with it. God designed it this way, but that can't be the first thing. That's what has to, that has to be the secondary or tertiary. I'm sorry, what are you going to say, Tracey?
So you both are hitting on something that's, a very important topic right now, especially for young women today. Modern day chivalry has the flavor of it has changed. Where women are not looking for, they get married, they have 3 kids. They're not looking for a 4th child and a husband. They're not looking for someone that needs to be told what to do. Oh, I just tell me how I can help you and I'll help you. They don't want that.
No.
They don't. They want you see the dirty dishes in the sink, wash the dirty dishes in the sink. They don't, women, in the whole role of the traditional role of the woman in the household, that's not what women are looking for anymore. That's not what young women are looking for. They're looking for a partner in life, and they want someone who can tackle challenges, and they don't want, it's a trigger word, but or like a hashtag or whatever, where I don't know what those words are, but it's what I don't know what the different terms necessarily are at any given point, but weaponized incompetence, you're talking, Father Chris was talking about how, I'm kind of, the dum-dum in the relationship or whatever, that men sometimes take, in unsuccessful relationships, and that's the weaponized incompetence. Oh, I'll do it wrong, so I won't be asked to do it again.
Yeah.
So, there's this movement within young people today of equal partnership. Now, that doesn't mean that every day, every little thing gets divided up 50-50. What it means is, in the grand scheme of the life of the relationship, things were 50-50. That's what people are looking for. And it's important to, what comes with that is, again, communication, friendship, respect for each other.
That's a big one that's missing.
Having respect for, so-and-so had, a hard day. I'm not going to, this was supposed to be something that they do, but they had a really hard day. Having the grace to be able to see, to change the flow and to adapt. Relationships aren't static. And it harkens
people
back to what
aren't
I said
static, like
earlier,
we
where it's
said
like, you aren't who
earlier.
I married, 50
Yeah.
years ago. And it's like, of course not. Of course I'm not. And you shouldn't want me to be. And so, there's constant growth, constant communication. Read, a good advice is to just, and not just, I'm not talking like self-help books or relationship books or whatever, but just read. Be reading what comes from the thoughts and the inner,
So
inner
few
workings
people
of
read
people's minds.
anything anymore.
They don't. But it's like, you just reading anything, you're literally seeing inside someone else's mind. And regardless of what that is, it's teaching you how to see another person's point of view and to internalize it and to care about it. You read a fiction book. It doesn't matter if it's a bestseller or if it's, a self-published book that, is, not so great. You're seeing inside someone else's mind and you're along for the journey and you care or you don't. But it teaches you empathy, and empathy and communication, I think, is a big component to a good relationship.
A very big one. Great question, Mateo. Thank you for that one. And thank you, Tracy, for that great answer. Yeah. We'll be back after this. Don't go away.
All right.
pushing my limits and all the drive that I have. Well, I'm going the distance with you. I didn't know what I had till I knew what was missing, and everything that I dread, well, I built a resistance with you. Catch me when I fall. that's when I knew that I need to spend my life here with you. Take your time, not in the fast lane. I understand that you've been broken too many times, but I'll be waiting to mend your wounds from all you've taken. But if we listen to each other and admit our mistakes, then I can show you who I am, because I'm not the same. I'm better with you. I'm better with you. I'm better with you. Catch me when I fall, and I'll keep you off the ground. That's when I knew that I need to spend my life here with you.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the third and final hour of Vestiges After Dark. And we've had some really great questions that have really sparked some good conversation. We'll continue to get through some of the questions and comments in the chat. You can also call into the show. I think I got the ringer off now, so you won't interrupt the broadcast like I've been doing. It's my fault. 802-321-0073. That's 802-321-0073. And you can also call me internationally free on Skype by dialing up Eye of the Seer. If you have Skype, you can use that. I know not too many people use Skype anymore, but it is still a really good service, and feel free to use it, okay? We'll be back with more of your questions after this. Okay, so we have more questions from the chat. I know there
We had
was
a good
one
one.
from.
It was
It was way up. I think it's past my point. It was from Tiffany. Do you have that one from a while back? It was a continuation.
Brandon, I think, has been getting them.
Brandon, what was Tiffany's question? I noticed it, but it's already passed on my screen.
Yeah, I got it right here. She commented, to build on Paula's question, how do you handle opposing viewpoints on your separate visions of the future? Has this happened with the two of you?
I mean, nothing that was in a. Look, this is how we handle any disagreement, and this would apply. Essentially, if both of us, if neither one of us can see the merit in making a change or course of action, okay, then we just simply agree not to do it. So there's been many times where I've been like, not recently, this was a while back, but I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm fed up. I'm sick of being here in Georgia. Let's move back to the West Coast where we were happier. Yep. But, Tracey would come back and be like, well, I'm not comfortable with that because of X, Y, and Z. And I'll be like, well, I'm not comfortable staying here because of A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. But because my action requires a change that would affect both of our lives, if we're not in mutual agreement, we don't take changes. We don't make changes. We keep them. We have to both agree to make a change. So that's, I think, one way of handling that. Anything that you would want to also add or more advice that you could give? I mean, we're talking ideals here. And
it's hard when you're talking in generalizations, but like in that instance, we didn't choose. We agreed not to make the change to make the move out of state, but we made efforts to improve what was here.
Yes.
So while we didn't move, the agreement was, okay.
Heathcliff is here. He heard his name.
But it meant that we have to work harder to try to make this work.
Because you listen to the fact that he's saying, I'm not happy. There's something that's not working. Yeah, exactly. So you can't ignore. I mean, I think also, like sometimes when it comes to the future, if you make an agreement, you have to stick to it. Mm-hmm. If you say, look, I want to move here for 5 years. Mm-hmm. After 5 years, we can move back if either of us doesn't like it or whatever. You have to stick to that agreement. Like after 5 years, you love where you're gone, and the other one's like, I don't love it here, and the agreement was we'd go back if it doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. You got to stick to your agreement. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's because otherwise you'll never be able to risk trying something new again. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's it's also the same thing with parenting. Don't threaten something that you won't follow through on. I'll turn this car around. Yeah. No, you won't. Yeah. We'll go home. No, you won't. You just dropped $200 on the tickets to this event that we're at. You're not going to take us home.
My water, by the way, sir. It's okay.
But it is, I mean, again, we're talking ideals. We're talking ideals, and we're talking the challenges that come with all different types of variables that are part of different relationships that are not part of everybody's relationship. So there's no real one standard answer to any of these questions, because so much of it depends upon how you as an individual interact with this other person and how the two of you have built a relationship together, which is going to
that foundation of trust and friendship. The
other thing is finances are a big part of it. Right. So if there's a lot of financial stress, that's going to change your dynamic tremendously.
Yeah, like in the example that you used, we can't throw all this money at another move.
Not justifiably, because part of the problem is what the real issue was that we have established a very successful business in the Atlanta area, and in order to relocate and go somewhere else, we would have to reestablish that business and kind of start over again, which is a daunting thing, and I can understand it. I am the kind of person that takes those kinds of risks very freely. She's not. You know,
I did that. I'm not doing that anymore.
yeah, and I'm not going to say it was pleasant every time that we've made those, but we had less to lose back in those
Yeah.
days. You know, today we have more to lose, and so, you know, that affects the dynamic. But I mean, as far as like the visions for the future, that's, you know, this is already an after effect of what we've been cautioning in the last hour to prevent, which is that's a symptom of having grown already a bit apart. And that's really a healthy relationship. And I'm not saying that you don't have a healthy relationship or whoever you're talking about doesn't have a healthy relationship because of this, but a healthy relationship always grows together. Okay. And so the vision for the future shouldn't have to be a great chasm between the two ideas. It could be something that could be something that's far enough apart that a bridge could bring them together. That's kind of how we did it. So like when I wanted to get out of here and she didn't, because we have had, you know, already some roots here that gives us security and safety and, you know, and secure, you know, a lot of financial security. Well, like, it's like, well, then what can we do together to make our lives more enjoyable? Because I'm not happy here. And I'm going to be honest. I've talked about this so many times. My students are probably sick of hearing because I talk about it all the time. I am not happy in the state of Georgia. I do not enjoy this state. I do not like it here.
It's not good vibrationally.
I don't like the allergies I have. I don't like the fact that there's nothing to do here except get fat and eat. There is, I mean, you can go up to the mountains and stuff, but it's like, you know, I mean, everywhere you go in Atlanta is so far away from everything else. It's like constant expansion. You can't be anywhere without a car. You know, finding good Asian food is a real effort, you know, whereas in Vegas, when I lived there, I could have all these things in like 5 seconds. It's like, I could just get in the car and within 20 minutes, I was anywhere I needed to be for anything I wanted. And I miss that more than anything. You know, it's not quite like that today, so I don't think I could go back to Vegas and be as happy as I was back in the 2003 is when we lived there. So it's changed a lot in the last 20 years, and I can tell you right now, it's not what it was. But there are places that are closer to what I like. But again, I compromised that one, not happily. I didn't take it out on her because I didn't get my way. You don't act like children about stuff like this. You simply do what's best for the family unit. You do what's good. It's like, think about yourself. You're a unit in yourself. How many times have you, as an individual, had to make a decision where part of you wanted to do something and the other part of you didn't?
I want an ice cream sandwich for dinner.
Well, okay. I mean, that's one example.
I mean,
but I mean, I was thinking like taking a job, like changing jobs or something. You know, it's like there might be part of you like, I really want to try this. I really think I could be good at it, but it's a lot of risk involved. And so there's this other part of you that's like, don't do it. It's too dangerous. You're safe. You're secure. I think, Jamie, you had some of that when you were discerning retirement.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you're split. There's part of you that wants to do it, part of you that doesn't. So how did you make?
It took me 3 years to decide to retire.
So how did you make the decision? You had to find a way to communicate with yourself, right?
A lot of inner reflection, asking
with
God
God.
for discernment.
Discernment.
And honestly, it came to me one night where, and this is kind of funny, but it was like a voice came to my head saying,
no.
Pardon my French, shit or get off the pot. We've been, it basically, you've been given the right signs and you're not following them. Pull the trigger and take the risk. You'll be fine. And I for 3 years, I struggled. And finally, I decided to take a leap of faith, and I lived on savings for a year before some other financial windfalls happened, and I was able to retire and fully. And yeah, it was
but
scary.
you have to discern that for yourself. You know, like, no one can do it for you. And I think, Tracy, you were saying about other people's relationships and what, like, if people go to a relationship counselor, they don't listen to the problem and then go, right, here's the plan.
Yeah.
If only. If only.
I wish.
Because they can't, and I like if you allow me an anecdote from my own life. I remember, my mum in the 80s. that kind of wave of feminism that said, oh, you shouldn't do anything for your husband and
burn your bras. Yeah.
That's not actual real feminism, right?
Right.
Right.
But, it's that sort of negative, throw off all the things that women have ever done for men for the last 100 years, And I remember her, like, my grandparents, who we were very close to, had what you would call a very traditional marriage, right? So my grandfather worked and looked after all of the finances and all that stuff, and my grandmother cooked, cleaned, entertained, and they were an amazing couple, like just an amazing couple, married for 50 years, and so. And I remember my mum like, oh, your grandma shouldn't be making tea, making cups of tea for him when he, and all the rest of it. And I was a kid, right? And so it's in the 80s. And I remember, so what do kids do? I'll talk to grandma about it.
Right. Right.
Which probably my mum didn't anticipate might happen. And so I said, my granddad said, I think we should have a cup of tea ordered, which meant go and make me a cup of tea, right? And I remember I followed her to the kitchen and I said, can't granddad make his own cup of tea? And I remember she just roared with laughter. It was like the funniest thing she'd ever heard. Yeah. And then of course, because she unpicked the fact that, well, actually he could, but that wasn't the point. Yeah. And she unpicked the kind of, she said, you've been listening to your mother. and she just was absolutely like, there was nothing about my grandmother that was oppressed. She was just like, listen, this is how I like my life. And this is how we like our lives. And your mum can do whatever she wants to do with hers, but this is how we live ours. Yes. And I think at that moment, I understood feminism.
Yes. Bingo.
I love that. So I think, and it's not for somebody else to project onto somebody else's relationship, especially across generational divides, because of course you're going to have different expectations and cultural ways of being. But anyone that had ever met my grandmother she was no shrinking violet. She'd chosen that life.
We got a question from
that was the agreement.
We got a question from Jennifer in the chat that says, how did polygamy be okay in the Bible in the Old Testament and now it's frowned upon? Right. It was never okay. It was always tolerated. It was tolerated. Part of it was
in the main.
Part of it had to do with the simple reality of the post-flood world. Some of it had to do with just the fallen nature of humanity. But this was never God's design, which is made very abundantly clear in the very first verses of Genesis. We're talking about what God's ideal is versus what man achieves, which is not much. So this is the sinful relationship, right? But no, it was not. It's not okay. It was not okay. It was never okay. It was just tolerated. And then as the Christian world became more familiar with the relationship it had with God through the revelation of Jesus Christ, that immediately fell to the wayside because it became more apparent. Of course, it fell before that too, but it was becoming, God was revealing himself more and more again after the flood. It was this process of revelation that occurred, starting with the prophets and then leading all the way through to Jesus Christ and then through the Holy Spirit and the church. But no, it was not ever, I think people that's a misconception.
Most of it was about, the church changed the nature of the communal aspect of the religious life. So for the ancient Israelites where polygamy is, practiced, if you look at the context of polygamy, it's fairly straightforward. If your brother dies, you must marry his wife. And the idea is, otherwise, who's going to look after her? Who's going to pay for her? Who's going to, this was a form of welfare apart from anything else. And so that was a big aspect of polygamy in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, the kahal of the old becomes the ecclesia of the church of the new. It's the job of the whole church to and hence the concern for widows and orphans. And, and so in a sense, the church is aligned in such ways, and still to this day remains that way. And many of the sort of welfare things that government now do find their origin in the Christian church. They don't do it as well because it's less personal and it's not connected to a community. But that's why there's no need for polygamy anymore. So to compare it to contemporary ideas of polygamy, which is about choosing to have a sexual relationship with more than one person, I don't think that's a fair comparison to what's going on in the Old Testament.
I think that's fair.
It's completely different.
It was a different dynamic.
Yeah.
It was a different dynamic. But again, if you're taking it just for face value, no, the design that God had for humanity was always a man and a woman. One man, one woman. That's it. Whether that's politically correct or, however you want to look at it, that's the simple reality of the Judeo-Christian theological position. It's unchanging. It's 4,000 years of development there. It's not going to change because, all of a sudden somebody doesn't like it. But Holly's mentioning the county that she lives in west of Salt Lake City. There's a bunch of polygamous families, and the women are generally professional women. Mormonism has this allowance for it, which I guess is another example of why I can't, in good faith, consider Mormons to be a Christian denomination. They're just not. It's a different religion. It is not the Christian faith. Just because Christ is in it doesn't make it Christian. Look, Jesus Christ...
They're not Trinitarians.
No, they're not. Jesus Christ is a deity in Hinduism. Does that mean that Hindus are Christians? No. They recognize him as a deity, but that doesn't mean that Hindus are Christians.
But, and that's not recognizing him for what he truly is.
Right. That's correct.
So it's a false recognition.
It's erroneous. So, polygamy is not God's design. Genesis makes this clear in the very beginning.
And Jesus quotes it.
Yeah, Jesus does quote it. Yeah, he makes it very clear too. So, no question about that. Tracy, any thoughts on polygamy? I guess from a practical point of view, I guess some families would think, boy, that would be a good way to really bring money into the family. Everyone, you have like 3 or 4 professional spouses.
I'm sorry, I'm the jealous type. I ain't sharing. I'd be like, the hell you being with?
Yeah, but just imagine if you had, if the guy's like a business owner and then he's got like a doctor, a lawyer, all these professional women. I mean, think of the money coming into that household. They'd be living pretty good.
No, they ain't about money.
It's just...
It was in the Old Testament, though. It was a part of a practical thing. Yeah, it was.
Today, not so much, I don't think.
I just don't, any, joking about it and everything, any joking sort of like favor for it, I can see the benefit of this because, you deal with him tonight. It's just...
Hey, whatever trips your trigger.
Hey,
I had a teacher.
I don't understand it. That doesn't mean that it's.
If it works,
whatever
for
works.
some, it works for some.
I had a teacher in high school that said that.
All the joking reasons that I could think for a pro of being in a relationship like that, just heralds back to a fault within the relationship to begin with. Mm-hmm. Oh, you deal with them tonight. It means that you're not, that you don't have this love and respect for the person that you're with. So what are you doing with them in the first place? So that, I'm not saying that that's what, polyamory and, polygamy, and I am not saying that that's what this is, but any reason that I can think of it in a joking sort of way, it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't point to a healthy relationship.
Just for context and to move it away from Latter-day Saints, which is one particular aspect of polygamy. There was polygamy permitted within the Anglican Church, within the Church of England and I think I've said it on the show before, that the missionaries go to South Africa, right? And they speak to Africans living there, and they say, the king's got all these wives. And he says, you can only have one wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they embrace the Christian gospel, you can only have one wife. And they go away and they come back to visit the king. And he says, I've solved the problem. I've killed all the other ones. So rightly, the missionaries went, okay, we've got to think about this, right? That was not something we anticipated would be a fruit of our teaching. And so polygamy was tolerated within certain tribal cultures. So look, I think it's fair to say polygamy is not practiced by mainstream Christianity in outside of particular tribal cultures, and therefore not defended or allowed. But I think it's a stretch to say that it's impossible by the terms of the Christian faith. Now, the way that we've eradicated it by introducing vows into the Western Church, right? So,
well, the sacramental theology prevents it.
So because we say to the exclusion of all others, right? And so that in making that vow in the way that the sacrament of matrimony is conducted in the West and in the East, of course, with the Stephana, it makes it exclusive. But I think it's fair to say that it wouldn't have to be exclusive. But again, we go back to another difficult problem that comes from that, which is that there is a reason it's men with wives and not a woman with husbands. And that's another thing, another nettle that people don't want to grasp. So,
only
but I think
in a
you're
few
right.
matriarchal societies, yeah.
But it doesn't take away from the creation narrative echoed by Christ that the ideal is one man and one woman entered into voluntarily for life. So, but look, I think. Yeah, I'm just saying we have to be careful being very certain about what the church does and has always practiced, because there is some gray area there.
Well, King Henry had a lot of gray areas. I mean, you got to.
Well, you could also say the contemporary practice of women having multiple children to multiple different fathers is another expression of a certain view or type of polygamy.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to expand it out. I mean, beyond strict sacramental theology. I
think it's a dangerous road, because if you I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you're not against it. I'm just saying that if anybody. I'm just thinking of these radical bishops that are looking for any in to figure out how they can change the church to meet the standards of today's demands. I could see how an argument that could be made to bring that back by changing sacramental theology on the sacrament of matrimony could be an argument to say, well, then you should be able to marry gay people, because then then sacramental theology is in flux. It can be changed. It can be modified. And that's the danger to it. It's like, well, yes, sacramental theology can be modified. It's not really in flux, but it can be modified as long as an ecumenical council does it. But nothing else, nothing short of all of the bishops of the world making this decision could that ever happen. And you're not going to get that kind of consensus, I think, on issues of this nature. So it's kind of a moot point.
Because you shouldn't.
You shouldn't. But there are.
But I'm just trying.
The ISM is full of bishops that make up their own rules. They change things. They think they can. They have no authority to do so. No one bishop can change the Christian faith. That has to be done by all the bishops or none. There's no exceptions there. Go ahead.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Anglicans have been doing it for years, and that's why they cut themselves off.
Well, like I said, King Henry kind of made it a gray area. He was kind of my favorite person to study in history, honestly.
Earlier, we had a comment from Jay asking if we could have a discussion about relationship issues when it comes to cell phone use and electronics.
We saw that one, and I didn't know if it was clarified. Brandon, let me know. But what particular part of that issue are they referring to? Because we weren't sure if they were talking about like people always fixated on their phones that they're not talking to each other anymore.
There was a little bit more discussion.
Okay,
That's kind of what it was referencing.
Okay. So that's what we're being asked. So Tracey, why don't you start with that one?
Okay, I'll start with it. And I know why he's probably having me start with it. I do tend to kind of dissociate a little bit in the evenings. I will readily admit that I like my TikTok.
It's not a problem until you tell me that I didn't say something to you and I did, and it's like you didn't hear me because you were on your phone. That's the only time it becomes a problem. But go ahead.
Vice versa.
With everybody.
Vice versa. But yeah, I mean, I try.
I'm answering Brandon's questions. You can't fault me for that. There's a lot of questions that come in.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I know. It's Brandon's fault.
It's all Brandon's fault. Yeah, Brandon's the one.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Let's agree everything's Brandon's fault.
I think that's
Always.
fair. Yeah.
Poor Brandon.
So there's a time and a place for being on your phone. It serves a purpose. We can disagree about the semantics of it, but there is a point to it. It exists, therefore there's a point to it. But when when we're sitting down having family time, having dinner, we're not on our phones.
No.
We're sitting, talking, communicating, socializing.
Sometimes during wine time, we might
Yeah,
pick
I mean,
it
at
up.
the end when you're just sitting around with a glass of wine or whatever, we'll
Wine time, just so you all know, we have wine time.
because the question came in from Brandon, so it's super urgent.
We open a bottle of wine with every dinner, and usually we're only about half done by the time dinner's over. So we finish up before dessert the rest of the bottle, and that's called wine time, and it's Heathcliff's favorite moment in the whole dinner. So.
Oh, he loves wine time.
When he sees that all the plates have been cleared, he comes back to the table and sits with us
Give
and
me some greenies.
enjoys the wine time.
Yeah. But when you're having time that is specifically being set aside, you're going on a date, you're, hey, let's spend the day together, let's go hiking, let's, when you're specifically setting aside a time and then you're on your phone, it's a problem. Because, it's not, it's the phone, but it's not, the problem isn't the phone. The problem is that there's not a respect for the relationship in that moment.
It can make you feel like you're not important.
You're literally doing something that's set aside to be relationship building, and then you're doing something else. The same offense would happen whether it was a phone or a book or a newspaper or anything. I'm trying to think of portable objects, but it could be literally anything. Oh, let's set aside a time. Let's go do this. Oh no, honey, I'd rather go sit in my art studio and paint. Like, that's just as offensive. Yes, you're doing art, but it's just as offensive as the phone. The problem isn't the phone. The problem is the mindset behind the phone.
Right.
It's the same thing with video games. It's the same thing with anything. Anything that takes away from the relationship time for the relationship is a problem.
Because I think the issue with the cell phones is it's a lot more mobile.
Yes, it's
wherever
so
you
portable.
are.
Yes,
It's everywhere.
and there's more on it than there ever has been before. There's TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook and Twitch and Instagram and X, Twitter and
the notification settings
constant.
that where
bing, bing, bing,
if you're
bing,
connected
bing.
to
Emails,
large numbers of
texts.
people, you're constantly getting pinged.
And then you've got the other
Yeah.
side of it where, it's your job. We're joking about Brandon, but it's your job.
It is my job.
Something comes in, it's your job. And I'm pretty
Oh yeah, I was just kidding with you.
yeah, I know. But it's I'm pretty because I understand it. It's not taking away anything from me. Hey, he's on his phone. I can be on my phone too.
I mean, there was. I'll be honest. There was a time. There was a time, and this is a good, I think, segue to talk about this. There was a time prior, maybe around 2017, 2018, when the team that I worked with here in the Atlanta division for the Order of Exorcists was much larger than the team that exists today. Mm-hmm. And there was constant communication coming in all the time. There were certain issues coming on with clients, and sometimes negative things going on, and a lot of drama sometimes. And I was always in the middle of these issues. Mm-hmm. Even with the Nicolean Network. It occasionally happens, though our moderators do a really, really good job of.
That's why y'all exist.
Keeping that under control. So it's actually not really all that all that dramatic anymore. If you come to the Nicolay Network looking for, typical social media dirt, you're not going to find it on the Nicolay Network. It's a very sanitized community, and not by design. It's just the people that are there don't want any bullshit. So there's no bullshit there typically. I mean, we do engage in controversy sometimes, political discussion, whatever, but it's always done in a respectful manner. People communicate their views. No one's ever, butthurt over it. So the reality of it is that there was a time where I was on the phone and getting myself all riled up and angry, and she was getting sick of it. And so she would grab my phone and turn it off. She would go on and be like, you're not allowed to talk to him for the rest of the night, and turn off. And I really appreciated those times, because I think I almost needed someone to be like, you need to disconnect from this bullshit.
The best thing that the iPhone came out with was the focus period. I don't know that you've got it set up on your
I don't
phone,
have it,
but I
because
have
that's
it set
not an
up
issue
on
for me
mine,
anymore.
And it is amazing. You can set it up where you don't get notifications from the apps that you choose, all apps, no apps. You can set up the time. You don't have an iPhone.
No,
Oh, girl.
I'm a Galaxy girl.
But you probably have something.
Probably
I'm sure they have the
you
same
something
thing.
similar. But you
Yeah.
can set up windows where you're not disturbed by, like I have a work chat for the business that I own, and I have times set up where it's like the place could be burning down and I won't know about it because they can't reach me.
Yeah.
You just have to have that that separation. You have to force that separation. I have a friend, one day she came up to me, she gave me her phone, and it was set to like a password screen, and she said, put in a password for me. And I was like, to do what? And she was like, to keep me off of, I don't remember what app it was. It was when maybe Instagram or something. It was a while, it was years ago. But, she was like, I'm putting in this password that I can't be on it for more than an hour a day. And I need you to put in the password so that I'm not tempted to circumvent it or whatever. And she's never asked me for that password. It's been 4 or 5 years.
Nice.
I don't know if she just got a new phone or
in my-
what.
in my
But I mean,
professional
there's
life-
things that you can do that, help yourself, with these distractions and everything.
In my professional life, I work in communications management, basically, right? For major companies or for politicians or for all that sort of thing. And, it is allowable. It's seductive, right? In any organization, whether it's not for profit or for profit or public sector, we've generated an assumption that you're always available to do work.
That's part of the problem.
Yes, that is a huge
you
part of the
have to
problem.
learn. Yep.
Especially with this
And the
work from
only
home
way
culture.
Exactly, and the only way you can manage that is to, and it's delicate. Like you got to be sophisticated at doing it. Is to not reply.
Yeah.
It's to you have to in your own diary say you have to portion it up. This is when I'll respond, and this is when I won't. And essentially, what you do is you coach people apophatically, but the negation of when they're not going to get a response. That's how you do it. And because people always want more pound of flesh out of you, right?
Yep.
And so you've just got to be disciplined with that. And why would it be any different in your personal life?
And use the automated tools that are available to you, like the business that we own. It has a Facebook page. I don't utilize the Facebook page because I don't want to encourage after hours conversation. I don't want to encourage where, you can message me at all hours of the night and you'll get a response. But I also have it set up with the messenger part of the page to have an automated response. And I don't look at it. I don't do a darn thing with the Facebook Messenger because it's like the automated message says, we're too busy for this. Call us.
I do that with cases. Honestly, I've delegated the case assessment to 2 team members. Jamie's one of them. The other one is
I'm
our
about
office.
I'm about to get a boost phone, and that's going to be the church phone.
I think that's a good idea.
Using my personal phone, I mean,
It's
you
too
get
much.
clients calling you at 2 a.m, texting you.
Yeah.
They don't have any boundaries.
No boundaries
I mean,
on some of these
No one has
somehow
boundaries.
I don't
Because
even know.
Yeah.
Look, I've never even I don't give my phone number out to anybody unless you know me personally, and and you're somebody I want to have my phone number. And
There's no virtue in having no boundaries. No virtue in that.
Yeah,
At all.
None at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't give that out, but somehow, and I don't know how, but somehow a prospective client found this phone number and called me. Tracy was fast asleep on the couch. I had the cat on my lap, and all of a sudden I get this call at like 1:15 in the morning. And when you get a call at 1:15 in the morning,
Somebody's dead.
you're
Someone's
thinking
hurt.
there's like a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it unnerved me, and I was already kind of dozing, so it kind of jolted me out of my getting sleepy and ready for bed. And I answered. I said, "Hello," very concerned, and this woman was on the phone saying that, oh, I'm so glad I was able to reach you. And I said, who is this? And she goes, well, I've been needing to talk to you. I said, who the hell is this? I was really getting fed up at this point, and then they eventually.
And she said, "It's me, Mum."
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a wrong number until she started, talking about demons and stuff. And I said, look. Let me stop you right now. Okay, I don't know how you get this phone number. I don't know what you think you're doing calling me at 1 o'clock in the morning, but this is not the way.
To get my help.
You're not good. You're actually going to end up at the bottom of the pile or in the circular file at this point, because I'm telling you right now, if you don't go through our process, I will never take your case. So what you need to do is you need to hang up right now. You need to go to nicolaitan.org and you need to fill out an intake form. That's the only way you're ever going to get a chance at my considering your case. And it has to go through that process in which it is pre-assessed by either Jamie or Janet, who is the office manager for the church. And so but this is how I have to set those boundaries, because if I just kept my phone open, and I do give exceptions to the Nicolaitan network, but no one on the Nicolaitan network takes advantage of me. And so I don't mind doing that there. No, I'm really totally kidding.
It's fine.
I enjoy the questions. It helps to create material for this show.
And it's discussion for us.
And it is discussion, and it helps me to think, honestly, because look, one of the hardest parts about being a church being a bishop of a church like this, I don't have the benefit of peer interaction. Yeah. I've got no priests and bishops around. Nothing. I can't do the normal things that bishops do together, because there aren't any other ones except for me. So I would get rusty in my theology if I wasn't constantly having to utilize that part of my brain where people are asking me complex or difficult questions, and I have to think of the appropriate theological answer to give them. So I appreciate that, but nobody takes advantage of it. No one's calling me. Yeah, thank you, Brandon. But no one's calling me at 1:30 in the morning like this client did. So.
The same individual texted me at 2:30 in the morning, then at 6 in the morning is like, hello, are you there?
No boundaries.
And I was just like, block, we're done.
Yeah, done.
Because I had been giving them advice over the phone, trying to give them a direction to go, and just, all hours of the day and night, no consideration. And I understand there's a few hours difference between time zones in the U.S., but think about it before you make that phone call to the East Coast.
I
was so angry.
I'm calling from Australia, so I have to be really careful. He might forgive me if I get it wrong.
Oh no, you're okay. You're not demanding anything at 4 in the morning and then wanting to know why I'm not answering.
I actually had this happen over the weekend. The business that we have, we're closed on Sundays and Mondays. I had an email exchange with someone on Saturday. Throughout the day, questions, answers. And I sent the ball back into their court with a question, and came in this morning, and they had responded Saturday evening at like 9:30 at night. And then we were closed Sunday and Monday. They emailed again at like 6:15 this morning. Hey, circling back around, just wanting to see if you have a response for me. And it's like,
no,
we were closed. That's a pretty firm boundary. We were closed.
Yeah, so, I think that's important with relationships too, because I know as a cop, when I was in the special operations, we were issued phones, and that made the administration think that we could call you 24/7, 365, and you had to respond, even if you're not on call. If you're the person that has the information, you're expected to respond. And if I'm at dinner, or if I'm at the movie with my significant other, and it got so annoying. but the one time I didn't answer, then I get threatened to be written up when I come in to work the next day. It's like, I don't get paid for that. So watch this. I filled out a callback in form to get time. It's like, every time you call me, we give you a county phone. Okay,
Absolutely.
here, have it back.
I'll bill you.
Yeah.
And so they eventually, when I was put into evidence after I got injured, they did take the county phone. But they had my personal phone on file because, you have the next of kin contact list. And they would still call me on my personal phone. So I just stopped answering it. And then I'd get all kinds of issues in the morning at work. But that can really weigh on a couple,
That
too.
can.
So
Yeah.
have your boundaries with your employer. Your employer's not sleeping next to you.
Nope.
Hopefully.
I had like I had one weekend off a month. When I was a cop, at one point I had one weekend off a month in my roster, right?
Yeah.
In fact, it was one every 5 weeks.
Right.
And
Been there.
and we'd always we'd end on nights into our long weekend off, which is the pits as well, right? And so anyway, like the Friday, the Friday I get a phone call from bloody personnel, and they said, there's some demonstration on, and phone me up, can you come in tonight? I'm like, well, I'd rather not, sort of thing. In the end, I get ordered on duty, and she then said to me, this was when I was young and green, she said, you were the only one that didn't say they were drunk. And
Yeah.
that's experience for you.
Don't think I haven't used. Don't think I haven't used that
just
excuse.
Had a bottle of whiskey. Just had a bottle of whiskey. Can't come in.
Do we
Yeah.
have any
Have your
more
boundaries.
questions that we have missed, Brandon? Have you seen any? I don't want to. I mean, we have some time to answer a few
I
more.
think he did get them.
Did we get them
I
all?
think he got them all, or we've
I didn't
answered
see
them. Or we've answered
I
other
think we
questions.
got them all.
No one saw any. Okay, well that's good.
Maybe
that makes me feel better.
maybe some last minute advice.
So, why don't you cover one of the points that you
Oh, yeah.
prepared for? We have probably enough time to
Yes.
go over at least one of them.
Prepared for.
Yeah. Well, we did. You never know what the audience is going to do, so we always try to prepare a few talking points to discuss in case the audience is quiet.
And these are notes on my phone that I put on there when we're sitting around having a cigar.
usually in the pool.
Chit-chatting.
Usually in the
And he
pool.
goes, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Make a note of that. Okay, write that down. So we've talked about a little bit the commodification of a relationship. You have to be willing. It's not about you in a relationship. You have to be willing to set aside your feelings in a situation. Validate your feelings. Your feelings are valid, but you have to be willing to set them aside for the good of the relationship. And that doesn't mean putting yourself into an abusive situation. That doesn't mean perpetuating an abusive relationship. But what it means is seeing.
No, this
the
is for
needs-
healthy relationships
Yes,
only.
this is not about someone who's going to take advantage of
This
it.
is not for
talk about-
insane people.
Right.
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 It is, but you have to be willing to say, he came home, he put his boots on the porch again. I've told him time and time again to not put his boots on the porch. They go on the shoe rack and I'm going to throw them at him. That's not healthy. Pick them up, put them on the shoe rack. He had a long day at work. He told you about it. He even told you he had a long day at work. Just pick them up and put them on the shoe rack. Mm-hmm. Now, if it becomes like a habitual thing where he's always not putting his shoes on the shoe rack, then a healthy discussion needs to take place. But, in the moment, there's so much, especially with the younger people today, I see it in the workforce. There's so much of not my circus, not my monkeys.
Well, you see this in restaurants when
You
when
see
you
it
get
everywhere.
when
You
you
see it
get
everywhere.
no, but I think it's more obvious in restaurants where you get like
it piles up we call it the Waffle House effect because we saw this at Waffle
they'll
House.
get disgruntled employees
Yeah.
that they'll have an employee. This is worse at restaurants where they share the tips,
Oh yeah.
where they'll see a person, they'll have a coworker that isn't pulling their weight. And so they'll go out of the other workers will go out of their way not to help with their table. So you as the customer get
customer
screwed if
suffers.
you end up with that particular
Right.
person that they're trying to target. And this is not This is not a way to operate in the business world. No. This is definitely not a way to operate in a relationship. Right. So if you want to go in it to try to be subversive and passive aggressive, look, the biggest destructor of relationships is passive aggressive behavior. Yeah. Get that shit out of your life. You know, it has no place in any facet of your life. It is only manipulative behavior. It makes you, if you're passive aggressive, you are the toxic person.
Yeah. Eye for an eye, tit for tat. These do not belong.
Do not work. No.
He did this, so I'm going to do this. Or she did this, I'm going to do that. Like, it's not healthy.
It's the little things taking over. It's ridiculous.
But if something is isn't important enough that you'll explicitly talk about it,
right?
It's probably not important.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not. And so like you say, I mean, you know, you have your kind of standard how things should work in an ideal world, but you also, if you don't respond to events, like, you know, so for example, in the priesthood, so Tracey, I'm sure you can identify with this. Spiritual
yes, as a fellow priest, I can probably identify.
As a matushka, you definitely can. As matushka, you definitely can.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So on Sunday, like, you know, when I was in regular parish, running a parish of hundreds of people, thousands of people, Sunday is the day that everyone wants to talk to the priest about everything. It's the worst day, of course, because you're the most exhausted because
the spiritual component is exhausting. Yeah.
There's the metaphysical component, the spiritual component. There's also the practical component, right? On a Sunday, in most parishes, you've got at least 2 masses in the morning. Yeah. So one's super early. So you're tired as well. And you know, your head's all over the place and having to so there's a practical side as well as a kind of you know, spiritual side. So that's probably not the day to have a conversation about, you know, whether we're going to move house.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, and also like Matushka has a great important role in a parish because she has to protect her husband.
And she does. I mean, honestly, she protects me from the from the stress of it. Honestly, I mean, it's an extremely stressful duty, I think, to pastor people in a church of this nature, in this size, without the support. Yeah. And it's a world church. You know, this is what I've been trying to explain to the county and why we need to restructure into the strange kind of little retreat house thing that we're trying to get the permits for, because it is this tiny little church, but it has this massive
global reach,
international reach. And, you know, and I'm the only one, you know, I'm the only clergy, you know, that administrates it. So she has to be part of that, that dynamic by default. And I mean, it's like, it's been a strain on our marriage at times, but again, because we approach things in a healthy way, in a way that is prayerful and discerning and understanding, I think, even though you know sometimes emotions will get the best of you from time to time, but we always reel ourselves back in. You know, I mean, you're still human. You're going to make human kind of errors. We're primates.
Reach your peak. Yeah.
Primates are kind of aggressive.
Don't brush past that point. Don't brush past that point. That's a really important point.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that destroys a relationship is pedestal.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you know, she's the Virgin Mary. He's Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No and no.
Yeah.
Not even close.
You're allowed to be imperfect and make mistakes and
because you are
stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unless you've got an approach of honesty about your own mistakes and also an attitude of forgiveness towards the mistakes of another person, you won't be in a relationship.
Yes, you have to give each other grace. You have to give yourself grace. You have to give the other person grace. You have to be able to see them in that moment. A lot of times
it's fragile. Just remember they could die.
Yeah.
Just remember, if you're not treasuring, you have to treasure somebody. You know, look at them thinking they're not always going to be with me in this way. Whether it's in the world to come, whether they predecease us, you know, life happens.
Yeah.
That's where, you know, resetting how much you treasure another person. Actually, this is not just for spouses. This is for every relationship in your life. It's
true.
You know, just treasure another person. That person is a vulnerable human being. And, you know, even people you find the most difficult to get on with, it really helps to go, actually, they have the same struggles that we all have. We have this temporal existence, and we have to treasure that.
Yes, 100%. Like you have to find.
And if you can't, then that's an indication that you might have crossed the line.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's, don't put yourself into an abusive relationship. Don't stay in an abusive relationship.
That's definitely not anything we've advocated tonight. I want to make sure that's clear to people. Look,
discerning.
Look, I'm the first one to say I don't care who it is. I've said it before. I get in trouble. Parent, child, spouse, toxic people. You need to get out of your life.
Cut them out.
Because toxic people are only out to destroy you and themselves. They
will bring you down.
They will bring you down with them. You cannot let that happen. So what we've talked about tonight is healthy people in a healthy relationship, trying to work out, maintaining it and trying to work out the challenges that are part of just everybody's relationship. But I think it's been a really good show, honestly. And Tracey, thank you for joining. I know that made the audience really happy. You're coming on.
Thanks to both of you, because it's a brave thing to do for a husband and wife to be talking about relationships live on YouTube. So,
it's part of the pastoral duty, Father. It's the pastoral duty.
It's work.
I am the impersona Chrissy. You are the Blessed Mother. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So next week we are going to be talking with JJ, back with the Hebrew Bible. He's going to be talking about the paranormal. Is that correct, Brandon?
The supernatural.
Supernatural in the Hebrew Bible. That's what it is. That's next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's the last show of the season next week. That's the season finale. But we will be doing our summer specials as usual. So we'll have a show in July, another one in August, and we'll probably either have a special in September or start the new fall season at the last week of September, sometime around there. Not sure about my holiday schedule yet for traveling in the fall, but we got to start thinking about it. But anyway, that's what's coming up. So don't miss us next week, because that's the last one for a little bit, okay? Anyway, thank you, Father Chris. Thank you, Brandon. Thanks to all of you out there. What do we got to? We got 87 right now. 87 people watching. Most of those, again, are going to be on X and Instagram. So thank you so much for joining us tonight on Vestiges After Dark. And until I see you next week, I will meet you out there in the ether. God bless everyone.